There are moments in history when the earth itself seems to whisper secrets, when a shard of stone, a fragment of bone, or a relic buried beneath centuries refuses to stay forgotten. Across deserts, jungles, and ocean floors, archaeologists have unearthed objects that defy logic. Artifacts so strange, so utterly out of place, that they challenge everything we think we know about our past. From obsidian mirrors said to reveal other worlds, to mechanical devices centuries ahead of their time, to carved figures that seem to gaze back at us with unsettling awareness. Each discovery carries the same haunting question: who made this? And why? Some claim these are remnants of lost civilizations. Others whisper of contact with something beyond human understanding. Whatever the truth, these relics stand as eerie reminders that history may be far older and far stranger than we've ever dared to believe. So sit back, open your mind, and let's journey into the world's most bizarre ancient artifact discoveries that will give you chills. Beneath the turquoise waters off the coast of a small Greek island, a ship once destined for greatness met its end. The island is called Antikythera, rugged, windswept, and unassuming. Its cliffs rise sharply from the Aegean Sea, battered by waves that have long kept the secrets of the ancient world. In 1900, a group of sponge divers, seeking their daily catch, stumbled upon something far more extraordinary: the wreckage of a Roman-era vessel, strewn across the seabed like the bones of a forgotten giant. Among the statues of bronze and marble, encrusted with centuries of salt and time, lay a small, corroded lump of bronze and wood. No one could have guessed, at first glance, that this strange, unremarkable mass would change our understanding of ancient technology. When cleaned and examined, the fragments revealed something astonishing: a complex system of gears, dozens of them, interlocking with precision and craftsmanship once thought impossible for the ancient world. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, often called the world's first computer. Dated to around 100 BC, the device predates the invention of modern clockwork by more than a millennium. Its purpose? To predict the movements of the heavens. With a simple turn of a crank, the gears within could track the cycles of the sun and moon, the phases of lunar light, even the timing of eclipses. Some believe it also displayed the positions of the known planets and the dates of ancient athletic games like the Olympics. It was a universe in miniature, a machine capable of bringing the cosmos into the palm of one's hand. For decades, scholars struggled to comprehend how such a device could have existed so early. The craftsmanship demanded not only advanced mathematics, but a deep understanding of celestial mechanics. The Greeks were philosophers and astronomers, yes, but engineers of this sophistication? That seemed unlikely. And yet, the evidence was undeniable. The Antikythera Mechanism was real, its precision astonishing, its intent unmistakable. X-ray tomography in recent years revealed its secrets layer by layer. Inside its corroded shell lay at least 30 interlocking gears cut with a fineness comparable to that of 18th century European clocks. Its inscriptions, tiny, nearly invisible etchings in Greek, describe astronomical cycles and the movement of the moon through the zodiac. Whoever built it was not experimenting. They were perfecting. But the question remains, who could have built it? And why did such technology vanish for over 1,000 years? Some historians point to known figures like Hipparchus of Rhodes or even Archimedes himself. The mathematical genius of the Hellenistic world, they argue, could have conceived such a mechanism, an embodiment of the Greek drive to understand order in chaos. Others see the Antikythera Mechanism as a product of a broader technological tradition, now lost, one that may have extended across the Mediterranean, influencing inventors in Alexandria, Syracuse, and beyond. Yet there are those who see something deeper, something unsettling. How could a device of such mechanical precision appear suddenly, without precedent, and then vanish completely from the record? If this was a culmination of centuries of development, where are its prototypes, its successors, its imitators? None have been found. It is as if the mechanism appeared fully formed, an isolated masterpiece with no lineage. More speculative minds have suggested other possibilities. Some whisper of knowledge inherited from a civilization older than recorded history, one lost to time or cataclysm, its fragments resurfacing in places like Egypt, Mesopotamia, or Crete. Others, reaching further still, imagine ancient contact with beings beyond our world, entities whose understanding of the cosmos dwarfed our own. Such theories, while captivating, remain unproven. Yet, their persistence speaks to the power of the mystery itself. The Antikythera Mechanism stands at the crossroads of science and myth, where archaeology shades into the unknown. Every fragment recovered, every inscription decoded, seems to answer one question only by asking another. Consider the precision required to cut its gears by hand, the mathematical accuracy needed to model the moon's elliptical orbit centuries before Kepler described it. Consider, too, the intent behind it. Not war, not conquest, but comprehension. The mechanism was not built to rule. It was built to understand. What kind of mind, what kind of civilization, invests such genius in the quiet pursuit of cosmic order? Today, the surviving pieces of the Antikythera Mechanism rest in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Under glass, they appear fragile, almost humble. Yet within that corroded frame lies a reflection of human ambition at its most transcendent and perhaps its most haunting. Was it a solitary invention, the brilliant spark of one forgotten genius? Or a glimpse into a vast body of knowledge that time has swallowed whole? The sea that concealed it for 2,000 years still guards its answers. And as divers return to the Antikythera wreck, searching for fragments that may yet lie buried in the silt, one question lingers in the quiet depths. If we have only found one such mechanism, how many more still wait beneath the waves, their gears forever turning in the dark? As our journey through the world's strangest artifacts continues, we move from the turquoise waters of the Aegean to the dusty plains of ancient Mesopotamia, land of rivers and empires, where human civilization first took shape. Here, in the heart of what is now Iraq, archaeologists uncovered something small, almost insignificant at first glance. Yet this humble object, pulled from the ruins near Baghdad in the 1930s, would ignite one of the most enduring mysteries in the study of ancient technology. It is known as the Baghdad Battery. At first, it appears simple enough. A clay jar, roughly the size of a human hand, sealed with asphalt and containing a copper cylinder. Inside that cylinder, a narrow iron rod protrudes slightly from the top. There is nothing ornate or decorative about it, no inscriptions, no obvious purpose. Yet when examined closely, the design seemed oddly deliberate, too precise, too engineered to be mere chance. When the artifact was first analyzed by German archaeologist Wilhelm König, he proposed a shocking theory. The jar, he suggested, might have functioned as a galvanic cell, a primitive battery capable of generating an electrical current. If filled with an acidic liquid such as vinegar or grape juice, it could produce a small voltage, enough perhaps to plate metals with gold or silver. This idea, simple yet astonishing, sent ripples through the archaeological world. Could it be that the ancient people of Mesopotamia, more than 2,000 years before the birth of modern electricity, had harnessed the power of the atom? Skeptics quickly pointed out the lack of direct evidence. No wires, no conductors, no devices that clearly required electricity were found nearby. Others suggested the object might have served a ritual function, perhaps used to store sacred scrolls or papyrus. Some proposed it was a container for scrolls or sacred texts, the bitumen seal meant to protect its contents from moisture. Still, the electrical hypothesis refused to fade. Modern experiments recreated the jar's design and, remarkably, it worked. A small but measurable current flowed between the copper and iron when the vessel was filled with an acidic solution. This finding reignited a deeper question. If the Baghdad Battery was capable of generating electricity, what was it used for? Some researchers speculate that the device might have been used in electroplating, coating objects with precious metals, perhaps to adorn statues or jewelry. Others entertain the possibility of medical or ritual use, suggesting that its builders may have noticed the strange tingling sensation produced by the current and attributed it to divine power. The mainstream view remains cautious. Most archaeologists argue that while the jar could act as a battery, there is no clear evidence that it was used that way. The absence of written records or associated tools leaves the question open. But the notion that ancient Mesopotamians might have understood, even accidentally, the principles of electricity is difficult to dismiss entirely. Then there are the more speculative voices, those who see in the Baghdad Battery not a coincidence, but a clue. Some fringe theorists suggest that it might have been part of a larger system now lost to time, an echo of forgotten technology that predates recorded history. Others go further still, proposing that such knowledge may have been inherited from a civilization older than Sumer, or perhaps even from contact with something not of this world. While such ideas drift beyond the boundaries of conventional archaeology, their persistence speaks to the magnetism of the unknown. The Baghdad Battery stands at that delicate frontier where history meets mystery, too advanced to be dismissed, too ambiguous to be explained. The context deepens the intrigue. The artifact dates to the Parthian or Sasanian period, around 200 BC to 200 AD, a time when ancient Mesopotamia was a crossroads of culture, trade, and innovation. Great minds studied the stars, measured the earth, and built wonders in stone and metal. Could such an environment have nurtured early experimentation with natural forces, an attempt, however rudimentary, to harness lightning itself? Or was the resemblance to a battery entirely accidental, an illusion born of our modern desire to find ourselves reflected in the past? The Baghdad Battery remains silent, its purpose obscured by centuries of dust and conjecture. It offers no inscriptions, no explanations, only the faint promise of understanding, always just out of reach. In museums and laboratories, replicas continue to hum faintly with the whisper of voltage, as though echoing the heartbeat of a civilization that may have known more than we realize. And yet, perhaps the most haunting aspect of all is not what the artifact reveals, but what it conceals. If a small clay jar could hold the secret of electricity 2 millennia before its rediscovery, what other forgotten technologies lie waiting, buried beneath the sands of history? Somewhere, beneath the soil of ancient Mesopotamia, the rest of the story may still be sleeping, waiting for the moment when science and chance align once more to bring it back into the light. From the shifting sands of Mesopotamia, our trail of ancient enigmas leads us westward, to the shores of the Mediterranean, where sea and empire once intertwined. Here, in the archives of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, lies a fragment of parchment that has defied centuries of explanation. Its colors are faded, its edges torn by time, yet the images it bears still ignite debate among historians, cartographers, and dreamers alike. This is the Piri Reis Map, a chart that, even after 500 years, continues to whisper secrets about the ancient world. The map was rediscovered in 1929, rolled and forgotten among imperial documents. Drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral and scholar named Ahmed Muhyiddin Piri, known to history as Piri Reis, it was unlike anything scholars had seen. Crafted on gazelle skin and painted with delicate pigments, it depicted the coastlines of Europe, North Africa, and the Americas with uncanny accuracy, at a time when much of the New World was still unknown. But it was one particular detail that turned fascination into astonishment. At the southern edge of the map lay a vast landmass, drawn with mountains, rivers, and a coastline free of ice. To modern eyes, it appeared to be Antarctica, yet this map was made more than 300 years before the continent was officially discovered. How could such knowledge exist in 1513? Piri Reis himself provided a clue. In his meticulous notes, he claimed his map was not drawn from personal observation, but compiled from 20 older charts, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. Among them, he mentioned maps from ancient seafarers, including one attributed to Columbus and others from the time of the pharaohs. It was a statement that sparked one of the great cartographic mysteries of the modern age. Mainstream historians suggest that the southern landmass was simply a misinterpretation, an extension of the South American coast, distorted by the limits of early navigation. Others argue that early explorers might have charted the northernmost edges of Antarctica's peninsula during a rare period of reduced ice, their discoveries surviving only through fragments passed down through ancient maps. Yet, even under scrutiny, the accuracy of certain details remains troubling. The Piri Reis Map appears to portray the exact longitudinal proportions of South America. Centuries before the invention of accurate timekeeping made such measurements possible. It shows the Amazon River with surprising precision and aligns coastlines in ways that should have been impossible for early 16th century navigation. As technology advanced, so too did the intrigue. In the mid-20th century, U.S. Air Force cartographers examined the map and noted that its depiction of Antarctica, if the ice were removed, matched the continent's subglacial topography revealed by modern seismic surveys. This fueled new waves of speculation. How could a 16th century sailor, or anyone before him, have known what lay beneath miles of ice, knowledge that modern science only uncovered in the 20th century? Some scholars maintain that the resemblance is coincidental, the product of artistic interpretation and cartographic error. But others entertain more daring ideas. Could Piri Reis have inherited fragments of an ancient world map, created by a civilization capable of global exploration long before recorded history? A civilization, perhaps, whose knowledge of geography and astronomy rivaled our own? It is here that the map drifts beyond history into the realm of possibility. Fringe researchers have suggested that such precision hints at a pre-Ice Age civilization, one that surveyed the globe when the polar ice sheets were smaller and the world's coastlines different. Others imagine that remnants of Atlantean knowledge, or even influences from lost cultures like those of ancient Egypt or Mesopotamia, might have found their way into later maps through unbroken chains of oral tradition and secret archives. Whatever the truth, the Piri Reis Map stands as a bridge between the known and the forgotten. It is both a product of its time and an artifact seemingly out of time. Its inked coastlines force us to confront a possibility that makes history tremble at the edges. That our understanding of the ancient world may be incomplete, not wrong, but unfinished. In the soft glow of the museum lights, the map appears almost alive. The faded pigments trace the contours of continents like veins of memory, as if the Earth itself were remembering a story we have long forgotten. Was Piri Reis simply a brilliant compiler of old sources, or did his hand preserve something far older, an echo of knowledge carried across ages, surviving just long enough to reach us? The parchment offers no answers. It remains still, silent, and hauntingly precise, a relic of an age that shouldn't have known what it knew. And somewhere, beneath the layers of ink and time, one can almost feel a question rising from the depths of history. Who mapped the world before the world was ready to be mapped? From the world of ancient maps and forgotten knowledge, our path now drifts south, across the deserts of Egypt, where golden sands conceal the bones of dynasties long turned to dust. Here, in the vast necropolis of Saqqara, the wind whispers across crumbling tombs and sun-bleached limestone. Beneath this shifting landscape lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological finds ever unearthed, an artifact so small and unassuming that it might easily have been overlooked. Yet, its shape, its form, and its mystery have challenged scholars for more than a century. It is known simply as the Saqqara Bird. Discovered in 1898 during excavations of the tomb of Padi Imen, an ancient Egyptian official, the artifact measures just under 7 inches across. Carved from lightweight sycamore wood and smoothed by careful hands, it resembles a bird with outstretched wings and a tail that, curiously, looks more like the vertical stabilizer of an aircraft than the feathers of any known species. Its craftsmanship is deliberate, precise, and entirely unlike the purely decorative carvings that often accompanied the dead. The object was catalogued and stored in the Cairo Museum, where it remained largely unnoticed for decades. To most Egyptologists, it appeared to be a simple bird-shaped toy, or perhaps a symbolic representation of the soul, the Ba, which the Egyptians believed took the form of a bird in its journey to the afterlife. Yet, as aviation entered the modern age, the Saqqara Bird began to draw new eyes and new questions. Its design seemed aerodynamic. The wings curve gently backward. The body is symmetrical and balanced. There is no indication of legs, as one would expect in a purely artistic rendering of a bird. And the tail, flat, vertical, and centered, suggests a stabilizing mechanism, something designed not for ornament but for flight. Could it be possible that this artifact, carved more than 2,000 years before the Wright brothers' first flight, was more than symbolic? Could it represent an understanding of aerodynamics in the ancient world? Mainstream scholars are cautious. They argue that while the object may display aerodynamic qualities, these could easily be coincidental. After all, birds themselves are aerodynamic forms, and Egyptian artisans were renowned for their observational skill. The bird, they suggest, may have served a ritual or spiritual purpose, a representation of divine flight, perhaps tied to the falcon god Horus, symbol of the sky and kingship. But others see something different. In the 1960s, an Egyptian doctor and aviation enthusiast named Khalil Messiha examined the artifact closely and proposed a radical idea. The Saqqara Bird might be a model of a glider, or even a small-scale prototype of a flying machine. He noted the lack of legs, the tail's stabilizing shape, and the center of gravity, features consistent with modern aircraft design. When replicas were built and tested, some were able to glide short distances when adjusted with a horizontal tailplane, an addition Messiha argued might have once existed but was lost to time. The suggestion ignited debate. Could the ancient Egyptians, masters of stone and mathematics, have also explored the principles of flight? Or was this merely an echo of human imagination, our tendency to see modern invention reflected in ancient art? Fringe theories soon emerged, weaving the Saqqara Bird into broader narratives of lost technology and forgotten civilizations. Some speculated that it might represent knowledge passed down from an earlier, advanced culture, one wiped out by disaster, leaving behind only traces of its science disguised as myth. Others, stretching even further, suggested that it was a stylized depiction of something Egyptians might have witnessed but could not explain, perhaps even a craft not of this earth. Still, for all the speculation, the artifact itself remains silent. No hieroglyphic inscriptions accompany it. No texts describe its purpose. It hovers, conceptually, between the spiritual and the mechanical, between symbol and science. When held in the light, its form casts a shadow that feels eerily familiar to the human eye. a shape we recognize instinctively as one meant to move through air, to defy gravity. Yet perhaps that recognition tells us as much about ourselves as it does about the object. We see our own longing for flight, for transcendence, mirrored in a fragment of carved wood left by a people obsessed with the heavens. Today, the Saqqara Bird rests behind glass in Cairo, its smooth surface dulled by age, its mystery untouched. Was it a toy, a ritual symbol, or a model of something we have yet to rediscover? The tombs of Egypt still hold countless secrets, sealed beneath layers of stone and sand. And as the desert wind sweeps over Saqqara, whispering through the ruins of ancient dreams, one cannot help but wonder, was this small wooden bird a symbol of the soul's flight into eternity, or a memory of the day humanity first dreamed of taking to the skies? From the dry sands of Egypt, our trail now leads into the quiet corridors of a European library, where, among shelves of leather-bound tomes and faded parchment, lies a book that no one can read. Its pages are aged but intact, its ink still dark despite 6 centuries of silence. Every line, every symbol, every drawing seems deliberate, purposeful, and yet utterly indecipherable. This is the Voynich Manuscript, the most mysterious book ever written. The manuscript first came to light in 1912, when an antiquarian named Wilfrid Voynich acquired it from an old Jesuit college near Rome. From the moment he opened its pages, he knew he had stumbled upon something extraordinary. The text was handwritten in an unknown language or code, filled with strange looping characters that matched no known alphabet. Alongside the writing were hundreds of illustrations, botanical drawings of plants that exist nowhere on Earth, astronomical charts mapping unfamiliar constellations, and peculiar scenes of nude figures bathing in interconnected pools and tubes that resemble both plumbing and alchemy. Carbon dating of the parchment places its creation sometime in the early 1400s, though who wrote it, or why, remains a mystery. At first glance, it appears to be a scientific or medical text, perhaps a herbal compendium or an astrological guide. But every attempt to decode it has failed. Linguists, historians, cryptographers, even codebreakers from the Second World War have all tried to crack its secret. None have succeeded. The writing has structure. It follows grammatical patterns, with recurring prefixes, suffixes, and syntax that suggest it is indeed a language, not random gibberish. But the language itself exists nowhere else. Some have proposed it might be a lost dialect, an early form of constructed language, or even a cipher so sophisticated that its key has vanished with time. Others suggest it might be a hoax, a medieval forgery created to impress or deceive a wealthy patron. But if it was a hoax, it was an elaborate one. The consistency of the script, the precision of its patterns, and the intricate relationship between text and image suggest a mind deeply disciplined, working with purpose. Whoever wrote the Voynich manuscript knew exactly what they were doing. The question is, what? The drawings offer no clear answers. Many of the plants appear to be composites, familiar leaves joined to impossible roots or alien blossoms. The astronomical diagrams show suns, moons, and star formations, yet none correspond precisely to any known celestial maps. And then there are the human figures, mostly women, immersed in flowing green fluids, surrounded by mysterious vessels and channels. Some see symbolism, a metaphor for creation, fertility, or transformation. Others see something more technical, an attempt to record biological or chemical processes centuries before modern science existed. As scholars probed deeper, new theories emerged. Some proposed that the manuscript encodes secret knowledge of alchemy or medicine from the late medieval world, information deliberately obscured to protect it from persecution. Others believe it might represent the work of a forgotten genius, an early natural philosopher attempting to document a personal cosmology, a world view entirely distinct from any known tradition. But there are those who look further back, or further beyond. They ask whether the Voynich Manuscript might be a relic of a lost civilization, its language a survivor of tongues erased by time. A few even wonder if the text could be non-human in origin, an attempt at communication across worlds, rendered in a logic we cannot yet grasp. Each theory opens new questions, but resolves none. Modern computational analysis has confirmed patterns that mimic real languages, but without a Rosetta Stone, without even a hint of the author's identity. The text remains locked. It is as though the book resists being known, its knowledge sealed behind symbols that mock our understanding. Today, the Voynich Manuscript rests in Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book Library, its pages digitized, its secrets accessible to anyone who dares to look. Scholars, cryptographers, and amateur sleuths across the world still study it, each hoping to be the one to hear the voice hidden in its code. And yet, after decades of effort, the pages remain silent. Who was the author of this strange text? A scholar? A mystic? A fraud? Or someone, or something, far more enigmatic? The Voynich Manuscript endures like a whisper from another age, beckoning those who seek meaning in the unknown. Its pages seem to promise revelation, but deliver only questions. And perhaps that is the most haunting truth of all, that some knowledge may not be lost, but deliberately hidden, waiting for a mind prepared to understand it. Somewhere between the lines of ink and the gaps in translation, the book seems almost to breathe. And one can't help but wonder, when the Voynich Manuscript is finally understood, will it reveal a forgotten chapter of human history, or something we were never meant to know? From the parchment pages of the Voynich Manuscript, filled with indecipherable words and forgotten knowledge, our journey now ascends into the thin, silent air of the Himalayas, where mountains touch the edge of heaven and time itself seems to slow. Here, among the barren plateaus and mist-veiled valleys of China's Bayan Karaula range, lies a story that defies explanation. A discovery said to bridge myth, archaeology, and something far stranger. It began, according to scattered reports, in the late 1930s, when a Chinese archaeological expedition led by Professor Chi Pu-te ventured into a series of remote mountain caves near the border of Tibet. Inside, the team found burial chambers carved deep into the rock. The walls were lined with strange pictographs, images of the stars, the sun, and small thin figures with large round heads. But it was what they found lying beside the skeletons that would capture the world's imagination. A collection of hundreds of stone discs, each about a foot in diameter, with a perfect circular hole cut through the center. At first glance, they looked like primitive phonograph records, but closer examination revealed something extraordinary. Etched along their surfaces were fine, spiraling grooves that appeared to contain microscopic hieroglyph-like symbols, carved with impossible precision. These artifacts would later be known as the Dropa Stones. For years, the stones lay unexamined in museum storage, dismissed as curious but unimportant relics of an unknown culture. Yet, when researchers began to study them in detail, the mystery deepened. The carvings were unlike any known Chinese script. They spiraled from the center outward, as though meant to be read in motion, perhaps even played. Some fragments were so finely cut that only magnification could reveal the delicate lines of their inscriptions. Then came the claim that would turn a forgotten archaeological footnote into one of the great enigmas of the 20th century. In the 1960s, Russian researchers allegedly translated portions of the symbols using specialized methods to trace repeating patterns. The result was a narrative, one so strange it seemed beyond belief. According to these accounts, the inscriptions told of a spacecraft that crashed in the mountains 12,000 years ago. The beings aboard, the Dropa, as they called themselves, were unable to repair their ship and took refuge among the local tribes. Though peaceful, their appearance, short, frail, and large-headed, caused fear and conflict with the mountain dwellers. Over time, the story claimed, the Dropa intermarried with the local people, their descendants said to still inhabit remote villages in the region. It's a tale that straddles the line between archaeology and legend. Mainstream scholars have long questioned the authenticity of the story. No original expedition records have been found. No museum has ever confirmed possessing the stones. Some suggest the entire account was a misinterpretation or even a fabrication, an echo of Cold War-era fascination with ancient astronauts. Yet others point to eyewitness reports and photographs said to have circulated before quietly disappearing from public record. In the absence of verifiable evidence, the Dropa Stones remain trapped in a peculiar limbo, too detailed to dismiss outright, yet too elusive to confirm. Skeptics argue that the grooves could be natural erosion, or that the discs were simply ceremonial objects, perhaps burial offerings or astronomical calendars. The grooves, they say, may represent nothing more than ancient artistic expression. But believers hold firm, noting that even if the story was embellished, the idea of such precision carving in stone at that time in history raises unsettling questions. Could the Dropa Stones represent an ancient record of contact, an event preserved not in myth but in artifact? Or are they a mirror, reflecting our own yearning to connect with something beyond the stars? The landscape where the story began offers no easy answers. The caves of Bayan Karaula remain largely uncharted, their supposed burial sites long lost to landslides and the slow erasure of time. Local legends, however, persist. Whispered stories of star people descending from the sky, of glowing discs and pale visitors who taught the tribes the ways of the heavens. Science demands evidence, and none has yet emerged. But the mystery endures, precisely because it inhabits that narrow space where proof is absent and imagination takes hold. Perhaps the truth of the Dropa Stones lies not in what they were, but in what they suggest. That human history may be deeper, stranger, and more interconnected with the cosmos than we dare to admit. As the winds sweep through the high passes of the Himalayas, scattering dust over stone and legend alike, the question remains, were these discs the remnants of an ancient craft or the misunderstood relics of a forgotten culture? Until the mountains yield their secrets, the Dropa Stones will continue to rest somewhere between myth and reality, a quiet riddle carved in stone waiting for the world to listen. From the frozen silence of the Himalayas and the enigma of the Dropa Stones, our path now winds far from the ancient East into the rolling green hills of Texas, where beneath the hum of modern life, a mystery from deep time once surfaced. It is not a monument or a scroll, nor a relic of a known civilization, but something much simpler and infinitely stranger, a hammer, sealed in stone. The discovery was made in 1936, near the small town of London, Texas, a quiet community perched on the banks of the Paluxy River. A couple named Max and Emma Hahn were out exploring when they noticed a curious lump of wood and metal protruding from a piece of rock. The stone, weathered and pale, seemed ordinary at first glance, until they brought it home and split it open. Inside, they found a hammer. Its wooden handle was partly encased in the rock itself, its head made of iron, still smooth and well-formed, as though it had been forged only decades earlier. But the rock surrounding it told a different story. Geologists who examined the matrix claimed it belonged to a formation dating back more than 100 million years, to a time when dinosaurs still walked the earth. How could a human-made tool be entombed in rock that ancient? The hammer, soon called the London Hammer, was small and simple, about 6 inches long, its design not unlike a miner's tool. The handle, once wood, had partially turned to coalesced material, suggesting extreme age or unusual preservation conditions. The iron head was remarkably pure, over 96% iron, with traces of chlorine and sulfur, an alloying composition that does not match standard 19th century metallurgy. Even stranger, it showed no signs of rust, despite decades of exposure. When the story reached the public, it ignited debate across the scientific and fringe communities alike. To some, the London hammer was an obvious case of an artifact that had become trapped in a concretion, a hard sedimentary mass formed by mineral deposition around an object buried in soil or rock. In that view, the stone surrounding the hammer wasn't truly ancient. It had simply hardened around the object over time, perhaps just a few centuries ago. But others were not convinced. How could such a concretion appear so perfectly integrated with the hammer's contours? How could the material appear indistinguishable from Cretaceous limestone, its edges fusing seamlessly with the iron head? And if the rock was truly ancient, what would that mean? Could humans, or something else with knowledge of metalworking, have existed millions of years before recorded history? The mystery deepened when reports emerged that the hammer's iron composition was unusually pure, showing no carbon inclusions. Some metallurgists suggested that, if true, such purity would require advanced smelting techniques not developed until the industrial age. Others noted that the tool's design seemed oddly anachronistic, part 19th century miner's hammer, part unknown. No definitive laboratory dating of the object itself has ever been accepted by mainstream science. Critics argue that without precise stratigraphic context, without proof of where exactly the hammer was found in the rock, the claim of ancient age cannot be sustained. Supporters counter that the stone's density and fusion to the handle are difficult to explain by recent geological processes alone. The London hammer has since become a symbol, both of skepticism and of wonder. In scientific circles, it is often cited as an example of how misinterpretation can lead to out-of-place artifacts, objects that seem impossible until the surrounding data is carefully re-examined. Yet in the eyes of others, it stands as quiet testimony that the past may be far stranger and more layered than we imagine. Was it a miner's hammer from the frontier days, accidentally fossilized in a unique mineral deposit? Or a remnant from an epoch lost to human memory when an unknown intelligence walked the earth? The hammer now rests in a small private collection, encased not in stone but in glass, its story still unresolved, its implications dangling between geology and legend. Scientists, historians, and believers each claim a piece of it, yet none can fully explain how an artifact of human craftsmanship found itself bound within what appears to be ancient rock. Perhaps the London hammer is not a relic of another civilization, but a mirror of our own curiosity, a reminder that time, like stone, can conceal as much as it reveals. And so, the question lingers: did the rock form around the hammer? Or did the hammer come from a time before the rock itself? From the dust-covered relics of forgotten civilizations to the quiet sanctuaries of medieval Europe, the trail of ancient mysteries often leads not to temples or tombs, but to faith itself. And few relics blur the boundary between history, science, and belief more profoundly than the Shroud of Turin. In a dimly lit chapel within the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, lies a linen cloth measuring just over 14 feet long and 3.5 feet wide. It rests in a climate-controlled case of bulletproof glass, shielded from light and air as if time itself were its greatest enemy. Upon its surface, faint but unmistakable, is the image of a man, front and back, his arms crossed, his body marked by wounds that mirror those described in the crucifixion of Jesus of Nazareth. The image is not painted or drawn. It appears as a sepia-toned photographic negative, formed by variations in the cloth's fibers themselves. When viewed in 1898 through one of the earliest photographic negatives ever taken, The details leapt into haunting clarity. The face serene yet bruised, the hands pierced, the body lined with traces of blood. For many, that moment marked the birth of a modern mystery. How could such an image have formed centuries before the invention of photography? Historical records trace the shroud's public appearance to the mid-14th century in France, when it was displayed in the small church of Liry. Even then, its authenticity was debated. Some church authorities hailed it as the burial shroud of Christ. Others dismissed it as an inspired medieval forgery. Yet no one could explain the image itself. It was not painted, etched, or burned into the fabric. Its formation defied all known techniques of the era. In 1578, the relic was moved to Turin, where it has remained for over 4 centuries. Throughout that time, scientists, historians, and theologians have attempted to pierce its enigma. In 1988, carbon-14 dating tests performed on small samples of the linen suggested a creation date between 1260 and 1390 AD, seemingly confirming the theory of a medieval origin. The world seemed ready to close the case, but science, as it often does, raised more questions than it answered. Critics of the test pointed out that the sampled corner of the cloth may have been part of a medieval repair, woven from newer threads after the shroud was damaged by fire in 1532. Other analyses found traces of pollen from plants native to the Middle East, including species found around Jerusalem, clues that seemed to pull the shroud's origins back toward antiquity. Then there is the image itself, perhaps the most baffling aspect of all. Under microscopic and chemical analysis, no pigment, dye, or brushstroke has ever been detected. The coloration is limited to the outermost fibrils of the linen, less than a fraction of a millimeter deep. Modern researchers using ultraviolet imaging and spectral analysis have struggled to reproduce the effect. Some suggest that it might have been caused by a burst of radiant energy, perhaps a form of light or heat still unexplained. Others have proposed more earthly origins, a medieval artist experimenting with early photographic chemistry, a contact image produced by natural chemical reactions between body fluids and the cloth, or even a deliberate act of devotion, a relic crafted not to deceive but to inspire. And yet every explanation leaves something unanswered: the 3-dimensional encoding of the image, the perfect anatomical alignment, the faint but accurate traces of Roman crucifixion wounds. Each element seems to resist easy dismissal, as though the shroud guards its secret with quiet defiance. For believers, it is a sacred witness to the moment between death and resurrection, the instant when the divine left its imprint on the physical world. For skeptics, it remains a masterpiece of mystery, a relic of human genius or accident, whose true story lies somewhere between faith and physics. The Shroud of Turin stands today as both artifact and apparition, a ghost in cloth form suspended between centuries. It has survived fires, wars, and skepticism, enduring as a silent challenge to science and spirituality alike. Was it truly the burial cloth of a crucified man from ancient Palestine? Or the creation of a brilliant medieval craftsman whose skill surpassed the understanding of his time? No one can say for certain. The shroud continues to watch from behind its glass, its faint image unmoved by the scrutiny of believers and doubters alike, a relic that refuses to reveal its origin, whispering through time a question that still has no answer. From the dim glow of Turin's cathedral, where faith and science intertwine in threads of linen and shadow, our journey now drifts south, across deserts and through the dust of ancient empires, to a place where stone itself seems to hum with memory. On the western bank of the Nile, hidden within the vast temple complex of Dendera, lies one of Egypt's most enigmatic carvings, the so-called Dendera light reliefs. Inside the Temple of Hathor, one of the best-preserved sanctuaries of the Ptolemaic era, the air feels still, as if time here breathes differently. The walls are covered from floor to ceiling in intricate hieroglyphs and divine scenes. Gods offering symbols of life, pharaohs kneeling in devotion, celestial maps etched in stone. Yet deep within one of the temple's subterranean chambers, carved into a narrow corridor accessible only by torchlight, there are images unlike any other in Egyptian art. On the ceiling and walls of this crypt appear elongated, bulb-shaped objects, smooth, almost transparent forms, each connected to a thick stem resembling a cable or cord. Within the bulb, a serpent coils, its body arcing toward a figure who seems to lift or present it. Nearby, other figures stand in reverence, their gestures precise, their faces calm. The images are striking, almost mechanical in appearance. So much so that when early archaeologists first encountered them in the 19th century, some could not help but draw comparisons to modern technology. What exactly are we looking at? A ritual symbol? A piece of lost engineering? Or something more metaphysical, an ancient attempt to depict divine energy itself? Egyptologists offer a grounded explanation. They identify the scene as part of a religious motif known as the Djed Pillar ceremony, symbolizing the stability and life force of the god Osiris. In this view, the serpent represents the vital essence of creation, the bulb a stylized lotus from which the world emerges. The cable is not a wire, but a stalk, a link between heaven and earth. To those steeped in Egyptian symbology, the carving is not a diagram of technology, but an allegory of rebirth and cosmic order. Yet the uncanny resemblance to something electrical has kept imaginations sparking for decades. To the modern eye, the relief bears an almost eerie similarity to a glass tube or vacuum lamp. Its shape mirrors the curvature of a Crookes tube or early cathode ray, complete with what appears to be a filament and socket. Some fringe theorists have proposed that the ancient Egyptians might have possessed rudimentary electrical knowledge, perhaps even a form of lighting used within their temples, where sootless ceilings have long puzzled observers. The idea seems improbable, but not without fascination. How could such advanced concepts appear in artwork dating to more than 2,000 years ago? Was this coincidence? Or could the image be a symbolic record of a forgotten experiment, a memory of lost science passed down through myth and ritual? Others venture further still, suggesting connections to mysterious energy technologies or even contact with beings possessing superior knowledge. These claims remain speculative at best, yet their persistence speaks to the magnetic pull of the unknown. For every skeptic who dismisses such theories as projection, there is another who sees in the Dendera carvings a whisper of something extraordinary, a civilization reaching beyond what history credits them for. What complicates the debate is the context. The temple's crypts were not public spaces. They were restricted sanctuaries, accessible only to priests performing secret rites. Inscriptions describe these chambers as repositories of divine mysteries, where the secrets of creation and the heavens were recorded. Whatever these reliefs represent, religious metaphor or technological memory, they were meant for a select few, not the masses. When light flickers across the carved stone, the images seem to move. The serpent appears to pulse, the figures to shift. It's as if the walls themselves are reenacting a ritual of illumination. Whether that light was literal or symbolic remains uncertain. For now, the mainstream consensus holds that the Dendera light is a purely mythological scene, its modern interpretations the result of pareidolia, the human tendency to find familiar patterns in the unknown. Yet, the mystery endures, quietly, in the cool darkness beneath the temple. Standing there, surrounded by stone carved more than 2 millennia ago, one cannot help but wonder, did the ancient priests of Hathor possess knowledge that has since slipped through the cracks of time, Or have we, in our hunger for wonder, projected our modern inventions onto their sacred visions? The reliefs remain silent, their meaning locked within the language of a vanished world, a world where gods, symbols, and science may not have been separate at all, but threads of the same eternal light still waiting to be understood. From the shadowed halls of Egypt's temples, where gods were carved into the living stone, our path now leads far across the world, to the windswept highlands of South America. Here, near the shimmering expanse of Lake Titicaca, lies a mystery that seems to defy geography itself. Among the relics of the ancient Andean world, one artifact stands apart, a single bowl, weathered by time but etched with symbols that shouldn't exist here at all. It is known as the Fuente Magna bowl. The story begins near the Bolivian village of Chua, on the shores of Lake Titicaca. A local farmer is said to have unearthed the object in the 1950s while tending his land, a large ceramic vessel covered in intricate carvings both inside and out. At first glance, it appeared similar to ceremonial bowls attributed to the Tiwanaku culture, one of the most sophisticated pre-Columbian civilizations of the Andes. But as researchers examined it more closely, confusion replaced familiarity. Alongside the stylized figures of fish, animals, and abstract patterns were lines of writing, delicate inscriptions curling around the interior like whispers from another world. They were not in any known Andean script. In fact, they resembled something altogether foreign. The wedge-shaped characters of Sumerian cuneiform, one of the world's oldest writing systems, first developed over 5,000 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia. How could such symbols, native to lands around the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, appear on a bowl discovered nearly 7,000 miles away, high in the Bolivian Andes? The implications were staggering. If authentic, the Fuente Magna bowl would suggest contact between the peoples of Mesopotamia and South America long before recorded history, an exchange that mainstream archaeology currently deems impossible. To understand why this claim is so provocative, one must recall the distance not only in miles, but in eras. The Sumerians flourished around 3000 BC, building the world's first known cities and inventing writing itself. The Tiwanaku culture, by contrast, reached its height nearly 3 millennia later. There is no evidence of any transoceanic link between them, or any reason for their languages or artistic traditions to overlap. And yet, the bowl exists. Those who have studied it describe two types of inscriptions. The outer carvings resemble Proto-Sumerian pictographs, while the inner band bears cuneiform-style signs, suggesting, if genuine, that the artifact might contain a bilingual or transitional text. Some enthusiasts claim to have deciphered fragments, interpreting the words as a dedication to Nia, a goddess associated with fertility and water. Others argue that such readings rely too heavily on assumption, bending symbols to fit expectations. The mystery deepens when considering the bowl's material and craftsmanship. It is made of a brownish ceramic typical of Andean pottery, not Mesopotamian clay. Its design echoes local ritual vessels, with handles shaped for carrying offerings. Could the engravings have been added much later, perhaps by a forger seeking to create intrigue? Or were they the product of a genuine cross-cultural influence that history has long forgotten? Skeptics point to the lack of archaeological context. The bowl was not excavated in a controlled dig, and its provenance rests on anecdotal accounts. Without stratigraphic evidence, without knowing exactly where and how it was found, its authenticity remains unverified. Museums have hesitated to display it, and academic studies are scarce, leaving most of what we know in the realm of speculation. Yet, even as doubt surrounds it, fascination persists. Independent researchers, linguists, and alternative historians continue to analyze photographs and rubbings, convinced that the bowl tells a story older than history itself. Some suggest it may be proof of ancient maritime travel, perhaps by Sumerian explorers or traders who crossed the oceans long before Columbus. Others imagine a shared ancestral civilization, a forgotten source of both Sumerian and Andean culture. Mainstream archaeology remains cautious, emphasizing that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But the Fuente Magna bowl continues to sit at the intersection of the possible and the improbable, a relic that refuses to be neatly categorized. To stand before it, whether in photograph or in person, is to confront the humbling vastness of the human past. Its engravings, faint but deliberate, seem to beckon across both space and time, symbols of a conversation that may have once stretched across oceans. Was it the work of ancient travelers, guided by currents and stars? A product of coincidence, born from humanity's shared impulse to inscribe meaning into clay? Or perhaps something more elusive, evidence of a forgotten chapter in the story of civilization? No matter how many theories rise and fall around it, the Fuente Magna bowl remains silent, yet its silence speaks volumes. A quiet reminder that history is never truly finished, and that the Earth still holds secrets capable of rewriting the map of our beginnings. From the misty highlands of the Andes, where ancient symbols whisper through time, our journey now turns northward, into the heart of Mesoamerica, where legends of gods, kings, and sacred relics still echo through the jungles. It is here, among the ruins of lost civilizations, that one of the most enigmatic artifacts in human history emerges: the crystal skulls. In museums and private collections around the world, these skulls gleam like frozen spirits, carved entirely from clear or milky quartz, polished to impossible perfection, and shaped with an uncanny anatomical precision. Some are small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. Others are life-sized, their hollow eyes catching the light in ways that seem almost alive. For centuries, they have inspired awe and unease in equal measure. To look into one is to feel a strange duality, beauty and menace, craftsmanship and mystery, reflected back in cold transparency. The most famous of these, often called the Mitchell-Hedges skull, surfaced in the early 20th century. According to the story, it was discovered in 1924 by a young woman named Anna Mitchell-Hedges during an expedition to the ruins of Lumbini in present-day Belize. As sunlight pierced through the dense canopy above, she noticed something gleaming beneath a fallen altar stone, a crystal object unlike anything the expedition had ever seen. The skull was said to be carved from a single block of clear quartz, with a removable jawbone that fit so precisely it could open and close as if hinged by invisible hands. Early examinations claimed that no tool marks were visible, suggesting a method of crafting that modern machinery would struggle to replicate even today. But as with so many ancient mysteries, the story soon blurred at its edges. Later investigations found no official records of the skull's discovery at Lumbini, and some scholars suggested it may have surfaced through art dealers rather than archaeology. Yet, even amid the uncertainty, the artifact's physical reality remains undeniable. A solid, exquisitely carved skull made of quartz crystal that defies simple explanation. Other crystal skulls have been found, or claimed, across Mexico and Central America. Some rest in museum archives, such as those in London and Paris, labeled as 19th century curiosities. Others, found in private hands, are said to possess unusual qualities, emitting faint sounds, causing visions, or affecting the emotions of those who hold them. To the ancient peoples of Mesoamerica, the Aztec, the Maya, the Mixtec, the skull was a powerful symbol. It represented not only death, but transformation, rebirth, and the eternal cycle of existence. Skulls adorned temples, were carved into stones, and depicted in sacred codices as vessels of divine knowledge. In this cultural context, a crystal skull could have been seen as the ultimate emblem of spiritual power, a vessel that bridged the mortal and the divine. Mainstream scholars, however, view most of these skulls as European creations from the 19th century, crafted at a time when fascination with the mysteries of the New World was at its peak. Microscopic analysis of several specimens has revealed tool marks consistent with modern rotary wheels, suggesting they were sculpted not by ancient artisans, but by skilled craftsmen using modern techniques, perhaps in Germany or France. Still, the legend refuses to fade. Among those who study the esoteric, the crystal skulls are said to hold within them stored information, vibrational memories encoded in the lattice of the quartz itself. Some believe they act as ancient data repositories, left by advanced civilizations or even otherworldly visitors. Others describe them as spiritual amplifiers, capable of enhancing consciousness, healing, or connection with unseen realms. Whether these claims are symbolic or literal, the skulls have taken on a life of their own, objects that sit at the crossroads of science, myth, and mysticism. Quartz, after all, is a substance known to science for its piezoelectric properties, its ability to convert mechanical energy into electrical signals. If memory can be stored in silicon today, could a civilization long before ours have intuited something similar, seeing in crystal not just beauty but utility? But the question lingers in the air, as clear and weightless as the skulls themselves. Were they relics of lost craftsmanship, symbols of power made in honor of the gods, or remnants of knowledge from a forgotten world? In the dim light of museums and temples, the crystal skulls continue to stare back at us with silent intelligence. They seem to hold a reflection not only of the past, but of ourselves, our desire to find meaning in the unknown, to connect with what may lie beyond the reach of recorded history. And as the light shifts through their transparent forms, one can't help but wonder, are we the ones studying the skulls? Or are they, in their ancient silence, still studying us? From the shimmering transparency of the crystal skulls, our path now turns to something altogether different, small, metallic, and strangely geometric. Buried in the soil of ancient Europe, from the windswept fields of Britain to the quiet valleys of Germany and the rolling countryside of France, archaeologists have uncovered hundreds of identical enigmas, the Roman dodecahedrons. At first glance, they seem almost playful. Small bronze or copper polyhedrons, about the size of a clenched fist, each with 12 flat pentagonal faces. In the center of each face is a perfectly circular hole, some wide, others narrow, and at every corner sits a rounded knob, as though the maker had taken pains to decorate even the geometry itself. Their design feels deliberate, almost mathematical, yet entirely unlike any other known Roman artifact. They have been found in military camps, in temples, in hoards buried with coins, and sometimes alone, as if discarded or hidden in haste. No written records describe them. No ancient historian mentions their purpose. They are dated roughly between the 2nd and 4th centuries, A.D., a time when the Roman Empire stretched from the sands of North Africa to the misty frontiers of Britannia. And yet, for all Rome's meticulous record-keeping and architectural precision, these objects remain an enigma. So what were they? Some have suggested they were tools, perhaps measuring devices used by engineers or surveyors. The holes of different sizes might have allowed for precise calculations of angles or distances, useful in construction or military logistics. Others have proposed they were gauges for determining the optimal size of projectiles, or even used in weaving to measure thread thickness for textiles like Roman gloves or tunics. These are tidy, practical explanations, but they do not explain everything. No two dodecahedrons are exactly the same. Their sizes vary, the diameters of the holes differ, and no pattern or scale seems to link them. If they were part of a standardized tool set, one might expect uniformity, but the variation suggests something else. Moreover, their craftsmanship, Delicate, symmetrical, and often highly decorative, seems excessive for a mere instrument. Could they have been religious in nature? Some scholars believe they were ritual objects, perhaps used in ceremonies to predict the future or interpret omens. A few have been found alongside figurines of deities, suggesting possible spiritual or symbolic associations. The shape itself, a 12-sided figure, has long been linked to cosmic or calendrical meaning. 12 months, 12 zodiac signs, 12 Olympian gods. Could the dodecahedron have been a miniature model of the heavens, a Roman attempt to represent the universe in geometric form? Others see something more esoteric at play. The philosopher Plato, centuries before Rome's rise, associated the dodecahedron with the cosmos itself, the shape of the universe, as he called it. Perhaps then these Roman relics were philosophical tools, carried by initiates of mystery cults or used in rituals that sought to connect the material and the divine. Then there are the stranger theories, the ones that drift beyond the comfort of history. Some fringe researchers have suggested the dodecahedrons were ancient rangefinders for artillery or surveying devices for unknown technologies. Others see them as astronomical instruments used to track the position of the sun through the year by observing how light passed through the holes. And yet, no experiment, no simulation, no historical text has confirmed any of these ideas. When modern craftsmen attempt to replicate their design, they often marvel at the precision required, the symmetry, the balanced distribution of mass, the delicate knobs that seem both decorative and functional. It is as if the makers knew something specific, something meaningful that we no longer understand. In some museums, these objects are displayed without context. Small bronze enigmas resting silently behind glass, labeled simply Roman dodecahedron. Purpose unknown. Visitors pause, puzzled, drawn by their strange beauty. They look too purposeful to be art, too artistic to be purely functional. Across Europe, more than 100 of these artifacts have been found, and yet no written clue survives to tell us who made them or why. Were they the possessions of priests, engineers, or soldiers? Were they tools of trade or tokens of belief? Each discovery seems to deepen the mystery rather than solve it. The Roman Empire left behind aqueducts, amphitheaters, and roads that endure to this day, monuments to reason, order, and power. And yet, scattered among these achievements are these small, perfect puzzles, objects that whisper of knowledge lost, of meanings buried deeper than stone. Perhaps the Roman dodecahedrons remind us of something simple yet profound, that even in the most documented of civilizations, there remain secrets beyond our understanding. In their silent geometry, cast in bronze and forgotten by time, they seem to challenge us still, to look closer, to question more deeply, and to wonder what forgotten purpose once turned in the minds of their makers. From the mathematical precision of the Roman dodecahedrons, our journey now drifts far across oceans, to the humid lowlands of Central America, where mist rises over dense rainforests and ancient secrets linger beneath the soil. Here, in the Diqui Delta of southern Costa Rica, lie hundreds of perfectly carved stone spheres, objects so precise, so deliberate, that even after decades of study, their origin and purpose remain shrouded in mystery. Scattered across fields, buried in jungle earth, and once arranged in careful geometric patterns, these massive orbs range in size from just a few centimeters to more than 2 meters in diameter. Some weigh less than a stone, others more than 15 tons. They are made primarily from granodiorite, a hard volcanic rock not native to all their discovery sites, meaning the creators transported these enormous stones across miles of uneven terrain, long before the advent of metal tools or wheels. What could have driven such effort? When the spheres first came to light in the 1930s, it wasn't through the patient hands of archaeologists, but through the rumble of bulldozers. The United Fruit Company, clearing land for banana plantations, unearthed dozens of them. Workers, puzzled and curious, pushed them aside, or in some cases tried to break them open, hoping for hidden gold. The explosions revealed nothing inside, just solid, flawless stone. Yet the mystery of their making was already impossible to ignore. The spheres soon drew the attention of archaeologists, who identified them as artifacts of the Diki culture, a pre-Columbian civilization that thrived between 500 AD and 1500 AD. But while their creator's existence is known, their methods remain elusive. How did they shape these spheres with such astonishing symmetry, some nearly perfect to the millimeter, using only stone hammers and sand? Modern experiments suggest it could be done, slowly, by heating and chipping, grinding and polishing over long periods of time. But such labor-intensive precision implies more than simple craftsmanship. It suggests meaning, purpose. Many of the spheres were discovered in deliberate arrangements, aligned in straight rows, triangles, or circles, sometimes marking what appear to be ancient settlements or ceremonial centers. To some researchers, this hints at astronomical significance. Perhaps they mirrored the stars, or tracked the movements of the sun and moon across the sky. Others believe they marked the homes or graves of chiefs, serving as symbols of power or cosmic order. Yet, even among these plausible theories, inconsistencies remain. Some spheres were found miles from any known settlement, placed in isolation, as if to stand as silent sentinels of an unknown past. Their precision and alignment hint at advanced planning and geometry, yet no written record survives to explain their role. This vacuum of certainty has invited more speculative interpretations. Some suggest the spheres could represent the planets, an ancient model of the solar system carved into stone. Others imagine they were navigational markers, guiding travelers across the land or sea. More fringe theories reach even further, proposing links to vanished civilizations or even extraterrestrial intervention, arguing that the precision and scale surpass the abilities of known pre-Columbian peoples. But perhaps the real mystery lies not in who carved them, but why they chose to create such perfect forms. Spheres are symbols of completeness, the shape with no beginning and no end. In many ancient cultures, they represented the universe, eternity, or divine unity. Could the Dikis people have seen in the sphere a reflection of cosmic balance, something eternal amid the impermanence of the world around them? Over the centuries, the rainforests reclaimed their creations. Some were buried, others displaced. During the 20th century, many were moved to gardens, museums, and private estates, stripped from their original settings, and with them, much of their context was lost. Today, archaeologists attempt to piece together their original placements, like fragments of a forgotten map. Satellite imaging and 3D scanning are helping to reconstruct the ancient landscape, revealing that many of the spheres were positioned along ceremonial routes or near mounds aligned to celestial events. Slowly, a pattern begins to emerge, a pattern that suggests knowledge, not coincidence. And yet, for every clue uncovered, another question takes its place. Were the spheres meant to honor the heavens or the ancestors? Were they expressions of artistry or symbols of power and unity? Or do they encode something still hidden beneath the earth, waiting for discovery? Under the tropical sun, the stone spheres of Costa Rica remain immovable and silent, unchanged through centuries of rain and upheaval, indifferent to the civilizations that came and went around them. Their perfect symmetry seems to defy time itself, as if carved not just from stone, but from mystery. Perhaps that is their true legacy, not an answer, but a question. What message did the Diki intend to leave behind, encased within these flawless forms? And if we could decipher their language of stone, what might we learn about the forgotten world that once shaped them? From the silent jungles of Costa Rica, where stone spheres rest like forgotten stars, we journey back to the desert sands of Egypt, to a place where death was never truly the end. In the Valley of the Kings, beneath cliffs bleached by millennia of sunlight, lies a tomb unlike any other, the resting place of a boy king whose legacy would echo across the ages. Tutankhamun. When Howard Carter first opened the sealed doorway in 1922, the air that escaped was said to have been untouched for over 3,000 years. Within lay treasures that defied imagination: golden shrines, jeweled amulets, chariots, and statues meant to guide the young pharaoh into the afterlife. Yet among these wonders, one object stood apart: a simple dagger, sheathed in gold, its blade shining with a strange silvery luster that had not dulled with time. At first glance, it seemed merely a weapon of ceremony, a symbol of divine protection. But as researchers began to study it more closely, they noticed something unusual. Unlike the bronze tools and blades typical of the 14th century BC, this dagger was made of iron, a metal not yet commonly worked in Egypt. For centuries, historians puzzled over how such a sophisticated iron object could exist in an age before the so-called Iron Age had even begun. Where had it come from? How had ancient craftsmen shaped such a pure and flawless metal when most of the world still relied on copper and bronze? The answer, it turned out, was not of this earth. In 2016, scientists using advanced X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy revealed that the composition of the blade matched that of a meteorite, containing high levels of nickel and cobalt. The dagger, they concluded, had been forged from iron that had fallen from the sky. Suddenly, the object took on an entirely new dimension. It was not merely royal, it was celestial. A gift from the heavens, quite literally, placed in the hands of a king who was considered divine. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the sky was the realm of gods, and meteors were believed to be tears or weapons of those deities. The word for iron, bian pet, translates to metal of heaven. To craft a blade from such material was to wield a fragment of the stars themselves, a weapon imbued with cosmic power. But how did artisans of the 14th century BC acquire the skill to work with meteoritic iron, a substance notoriously difficult to shape and melt? The metal's high melting point would have been beyond the capabilities of known Egyptian furnaces at the time. Did they hammer it cold, laboring for days to give it form? Or did they possess a knowledge now lost of techniques we have yet to rediscover? Some suggest the blade was a diplomatic gift, perhaps from the kingdom of Mitanni or the Hittites, cultures that had access to meteoritic iron and closer ties to trade in the ancient Near East. Others believe it was an heirloom, passed down through generations of pharaohs, its origin long forgotten but its divine significance preserved. And yet, the craftsmanship remains baffling. The blade is smooth, sharp, and perfectly balanced, its precision rivaling metalwork thousands of years ahead of its time. The hilt is wrapped in fine gold, inlaid with rock crystal and obsidian, its symmetry impeccable. To some, it seems almost out of place, as if it belonged to a civilization beyond the one we know. Of course, more speculative minds have drawn other conclusions. Could this be evidence of knowledge granted by visitors from the stars, or proof of a forgotten chapter in human technology? Was the young pharaoh buried not just with a symbol of power, but with an object whose origin connected him, literally, to the cosmos? Mainstream scholars, of course, see no need for such theories. They argue that the dagger is a testament to human ingenuity, to the Egyptians' ability to revere, repurpose, and master what nature bestowed upon them. Yet even they admit, this artifact challenges the timeline of ancient metallurgy, hinting at a sophistication not fully understood. When Carter first lifted the dagger from Tutankhamun's wrappings, He could hardly have known that it held within it the story of a meteor's fiery descent through the atmosphere, its impact perhaps witnessed by astonished eyes thousands of years ago. From sky to sand, from star to tomb, the blade's journey embodies a rare intersection between heaven and earth, science and myth. Today, the dagger rests in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, sealed behind glass and bathed in soft golden light. It no longer gleams in the hand of a god-king, yet it still whispers of the skies from which it fell. And as we gaze upon it, one question lingers. Did the ancients see themselves as merely shaping the gifts of the heavens? Or were they, in some deeper sense, trying to reclaim their own lost connection to the stars? From the gleaming blade of Tutankhamun's celestial dagger, forged from a fragment of the heavens, we turn once more to the sands of Egypt, a land where stone, shadow, and time intertwine to conceal secrets that still defy explanation. Deep within the ancient city of Abydos, one of Egypt's most sacred sites, lies a temple that seems to whisper of the gods themselves, the Temple of Seti I. It is here, high on a sandstone architrave above the colonnaded hall, that a most curious mystery is carved into the stone. Images that appear at first glance impossibly modern. The walls of Abydos are covered in intricate hieroglyphs, their lines precise and their meanings profound. They tell of pharaohs and gods, of creation and divine power. Yet amid these sacred inscriptions are a series of carvings that have captured imaginations around the world, forms that seem to depict a helicopter, an airplane, and even what looks strikingly like a modern submarine. The carvings are faint but distinct. The curved canopy of a cockpit, rotor blades, fuselages, shapes eerily familiar to eyes living millennia after the temple was built. How could such images exist in a monument constructed more than 3,000 years ago, during the reign of Seti I, around 1300 BC? When photographs of these carvings first surfaced in the 1990s, they ignited a firestorm of debate. To some, the resemblance was undeniable. They saw in the ancient stone evidence that our ancestors may have witnessed, or remembered, technology far beyond what conventional history allows. To others, these forms were a coincidence, an illusion born of weathering, damage, and time. The mainstream explanation, in fact, is a simple one. Egyptologists argue that the carvings are the result of overlapping inscriptions, an ancient form of palimpsest. When Seti I's son, Ramses II, inherited the throne, he often ordered his own titles and names to be carved over his father's. In doing so, old hieroglyphs were chiseled away and new ones inscribed atop them. Over centuries of erosion, these layers merged visually, creating hybrid shapes that the human mind, always eager to find patterns, interprets as something familiar. A helicopter, then, may be nothing more than the accidental merging of the symbols for chieftain and great house. The supposed submarine, perhaps just an eroded version of two hieroglyphs superimposed. The rational mind finds comfort in such explanations, neat, tidy, and rooted in what we know of ancient Egyptian art and practice. And yet, for others, that neatness itself feels unsatisfying. Because in Egypt, nothing is ever quite so simple. Abydos was no ordinary city. It was one of the oldest and holiest centers of worship, associated with Osiris, the god of the afterlife and resurrection. Kings built temples here not only to honor the gods, but to connect with the cosmic order itself. Within the walls of Seti's temple, depictions of gods, stars, and celestial boats suggest a culture deeply aware of both earthly and cosmic realms. So, the question lingers. Were these carvings mere accidents of erosion, or deliberate symbols of something now lost to us? Could they have been intended to represent the divine chariots of the gods, or mythic craft that moved between the heavens and the earth? In myth and inscription alike, ancient Egypt spoke of beings who came from the stars, who traveled in boats of light. Could it be that what we now see as technological imagery is, in truth, a symbolic reflection of a cosmic reality long forgotten? Of course, to others, such ideas drift too close to fantasy. They see in the carvings not prophecy, but pareidolia, the human tendency to see meaning in randomness. Just as one finds faces in clouds, so too might we find machines in weathered hieroglyphs. And yet, the mystery endures. Because when you stand beneath those carvings in the dim, echoing hall of Seti's temple, when sunlight cuts through the dust and strikes the stone just right, the forms do seem to leap to life. One can almost imagine the whir of invisible rotors, the hum of engines, the shadow of something not yet born to human hands. Perhaps that's what makes the carvings of Abydos so compelling. Whether they reveal an ancient truth or an illusion of our own making, they hold a mirror to our desire to connect the past to the present, to find in the ancient world reflections of our own. As the desert wind moves through the ruins and the hieroglyphs fade ever so slightly with each passing year, the carvings continue to defy certainty. Were they accidents of history, or messages carved in stone to remind us that the line between myth and reality has always been thinner than we think? Somewhere, high on that sandstone wall, the shapes still watch in silence, part of an enigma that refuses to fade. And one can't help but wonder, what if the ancients truly knew more than we imagine? And the evidence has been hiding in plain sight all along. From the sacred carvings at Abydos, etched into stone like messages for gods or time itself, we journey across oceans and continents to a land where the earth itself becomes the canvas. Here, in the arid deserts of southern Peru, beneath an endless sky and the blazing light of the sun, lies one of humanity's most haunting enigmas, the Nazca Lines. Stretching across nearly 500 square kilometers of desert plain, these enormous geoglyphs, some simple lines, others vast and intricate figures, can only truly be seen from high above. Etched into the dry, rust-red surface of the Pampa de Jumana, they form shapes that defy scale. A hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, a series of spirals, trapezoids, and perfectly straight lines that run for miles. From the ground, they're barely visible, mere shallow grooves cut into the desert crust. But from the sky, they emerge in breathtaking clarity, colossal designs drawn with mathematical precision, surviving for over 1,000 years under the relentless Andean sun. The Nazca Lines were first brought to global attention in the 20th century when pilots flying over the region glimpsed the strange figures below. Since then, archaeologists and historians have wrestled with the same enduring question. Why were they made? We know that the Nazca culture flourished here between roughly 500 BC and 500 AD. They were skilled artisans and builders, masters of irrigation who carved life from one of the driest regions on Earth. But their decision to carve such immense shapes into the desert remains an act of staggering ambition and mystery. The mainstream explanation, supported by decades of archaeological work, suggests a ritual purpose. Some researchers believe the lines formed ceremonial pathways, routes walked by priests and pilgrims in rituals meant to invoke rain or fertility. The desert, after all, was a place of both life and death. Water was everything. Some lines seem to point toward ancient aquifers or align with the rising and setting of the sun at key points in the agricultural calendar. Others see astronomical purpose in the designs. The German mathematician Piri Reis, who devoted her life to studying the lines, proposed that they formed a vast celestial calendar, mapping the movements of stars and solstices. To her, the desert was an open observatory, the lines a dialogue between earth and sky. But not all explanations rest easily within the bounds of the known. To some, the precision, scale, and vantage point required to view the Nazca Lines seemed to stretch beyond the capabilities or intentions of the people who made them. After all, how could ancient artisans, without access to flight or aerial views, design such perfect proportions over such vast distances? Could they have used primitive balloons or observation towers to chart their work from above? Archaeologists have found no direct evidence, but the question lingers. Others suggest the lines weren't meant for human eyes at all, but for the gods, beings who watched from the heavens. And then there are the more speculative theories, that the lines were meant as landing markers, signals for sky visitors described in ancient myths. Proponents of these ideas point to the remarkable straightness of certain lines, some stretching for kilometers without deviation, and their resemblance to modern airstrips. While mainstream science finds no evidence to support such claims, the mystery's endurance speaks to something deeper. Our fascination with the unknown and our longing to find meaning written into the earth itself. Even the method of their creation adds to the enigma. The builders removed the reddish-brown stones that covered the desert surface, revealing the lighter soil beneath. In doing so, they created lines that have survived millennia, protected by the dry climate and the absence of wind or rain. A fragile miracle of preservation, as if time itself agreed to keep their message intact. Today, the Nazca Lines remain one of the world's most puzzling ancient legacies. Satellite imaging and drone technology have revealed hundreds more. New figures hidden in the sand, undiscovered for centuries. Some depict strange humanoid forms, others abstract geometries unlike any known symbol. What were these people trying to say? Were the lines a map, a message, a ritual, or an offering? Did they seek to communicate with gods, or with something beyond gods altogether? Standing at the edge of the Nazca Plain, the silence is overwhelming. The wind carries only the faint hiss of sand. The horizon stretches endlessly, and the sun burns with the same unflinching intensity it did 2,000 years ago. Somewhere out there, in this vast and ancient desert, the answers may still be written into the dust. And as the camera of time pulls slowly upward, higher and higher until the lines begin to take shape, the mystery of Nazca reminds us of a simple, chilling truth. Some messages were never meant to be read from the ground. As the sun sinks behind the Andes and the shadows of the Nazca Lines fade into dusk, our journey drifts eastward, across the Pacific Ocean, toward a land of islands shrouded in mist and memory. Here, in the ancient soils of Japan, another mystery awaits. It is smaller in scale than the desert carvings of Peru, yet perhaps even more haunting in its detail. Scattered across the countryside, from Hokkaido in the north to Kyushu in the south, archaeologists have unearthed thousands of clay figures, each one distinct, each one strangely alive. They are known as Dogū. At first glance, these figurines appear almost human. Short bodies, rounded torsos, wide hips. But their faces seem anything but ordinary. Enormous eyes shaped like goggles, intricate patterns carved into the skin, limbs etched with symbols or adorned with strange geometric textures. Some resemble beings encased in armor or suits. Others look as though they are wearing helmets or visors. The effect is both mesmerizing and unsettling, as though one is staring into the past and finding the future staring back. The Dogū date to Japan's Jomon period, between roughly 14,000 and 400 BC, a time when hunter-gatherer societies flourished across the archipelago. The people of this era lived close to nature, crafting pottery, tools, and ornaments long before agriculture took deep root. Yet among their creations, the Dogū stand apart. What were they meant to represent? Archaeologists have proposed many answers. Some see them as fertility symbols, the exaggerated hips and breasts evoking the power of birth and regeneration. Others suggest they were used in healing rituals, where ailments or misfortunes were transferred into the clay body of the figurine, which was then broken to release the sickness. The scattered fragments found at excavation sites seem to support this idea. Many Dogū were discovered intentionally shattered, as if the act held sacred significance. But even with these explanations, questions remain. Why the elaborate designs? Why the almost mechanical features? And why do so many appear to wear what looks eerily like goggles or helmets, centuries before such concepts should have existed? Some scholars believe the goggle eyes were stylized representations of the human form, perhaps mimicking tattoos, scarification, or ritual masks. The bulging eyes might have been inspired by spiritual visions, or by animals like owls, symbols of wisdom and mystery in Jomon culture. Yet others point to something far more unconventional. To the more speculative mind, the Dogū resemble not gods of earth, but visitors from the heavens. Their strange proportions and intricate detailing have led some fringe theorists to propose that they depict ancient astronauts, extraterrestrial beings who visited the early peoples of Japan, leaving behind images of themselves in clay. The idea has become a staple of ancient alien hypotheses, placing the Dogū alongside the Nazca Lines, the Abydos carvings, and other relics said to hint at contact between early humanity and something beyond this world. Mainstream archaeology rejects such interpretations, emphasizing that the Dogū can be understood within the symbolic framework of Jomon spirituality. Yet the allure of mystery persists, because even when viewed as earthly creations, they seem to embody something more, an intersection of humanity and the unknown. Their appearance suggests both ritual and technology, both art and communication. Were these figures representations of deities, ancestors, or shamans? Were they meant to bridge the visible and invisible worlds, to channel forces that language could not describe? Or were they, as some quietly wonder, inspired by something truly extraordinary witnessed millennia ago? In recent decades, new discoveries have added fresh layers to the enigma. Some Dogū show intricate patterns that seem almost schematic, like designs of circuitry or protective suits. Others bear deliberate asymmetries or missing limbs, as if crafted to reflect not perfection but transformation. In their silence, they hint at a worldview where the human and the cosmic are not separate realms but parts of a single mysterious continuum. Today, many of these figures rest behind glass in Japan's museums, their clay surfaces glowing softly under museum lights. Yet even in controlled environments, they seem to radiate something beyond their age, an aura of intelligence, of purpose not yet understood. Looking into their hollow eyes, one senses both familiarity and distance, as though these ancient artisans reached toward something far greater than themselves. And perhaps that is what makes the Dogū so haunting. They are artifacts born of deep imagination, echoes of a people trying to translate their understanding of the universe into form. Whether they depict gods, spirits, or something else entirely, their mystery remains intact. As we move through the corridors of prehistory, tracing the delicate fingerprints of forgotten hands, one question continues to whisper through time. Who or what inspired the creators of the Dogū to craft such otherworldly forms in the age before memory? As the story of the Dogū figurines fades into the ancient mists of Japan, our journey now moves west, across continents and seas, to the green, windswept hills of Scotland. Here, among the quiet countryside near the town of Clydebank, lies a slab of stone unlike any other. Buried for decades, protected from weather and time, it hides an intricate map of symbols that may have been carved thousands of years before written history began. Locals call it the Cochno Stone. At first glance, it looks like a single massive boulder half sunk into the earth, but when fully uncovered, it reveals a sprawling canvas of mysterious carvings, spirals, circles, grooves, and cup marks, all interconnected by precise winding lines. The stone measures nearly 43 feet across, making it one of the largest and most elaborate examples of prehistoric rock art ever discovered. It was first recorded in 1887, when the Reverend James Harvey stumbled upon it on farmland near the village of Faifley. What he found astounded him. Over 90 carved symbols, rings within rings, swirling designs, and patterns that seemed deliberate, as if meant to convey something far more complex than decoration. Scholars quickly took notice. Some called it an ancient calendar, others believed it a map of the heavens. But even now, over a century later, its true meaning remains hidden beneath layers of speculation. Archaeologists date the carvings to around 3000 BC, placing them in the late Neolithic or early Bronze Age, a time when stone circles and megaliths were appearing across the British Isles. The motifs on the Cochno Stone are not unique. Similar cup and ring patterns have been found from Ireland to northern Spain, and even as far as Scandinavia. Yet none are as large or as intricately composed as this one. It's as if the unknown artists here were trying to communicate something grander, something cosmic. The patterns appear too deliberate to be random. The concentric rings radiate outward like ripples on water, while deep grooves connect the circles like pathways or constellations. Were these carvings an early attempt at cartography? A depiction of the landscape, the night sky, or perhaps both? Some researchers believe the symbols could mark the positions of celestial bodies, tracking solstices or eclipses, much like the alignments found at Stonehenge or Newgrange. Others, however, see the stone as something more spiritual. In ancient cultures, circles often symbolized the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Could the carvings have been part of a sacred ritual? Perhaps a place where early peoples gathered to commune with the forces of nature or with something they believed existed beyond it. In 1965, the stone was deliberately buried again. Decades of exposure had taken their toll, and local residents feared further damage from vandalism and erosion. For 50 years, the Cochno Stone lay hidden beneath layers of soil and grass, forgotten except in whispers and photographs. It wasn't until 2015 that archaeologists carefully unearthed it once more, using advanced scanning technology to record every line and indentation in microscopic detail. What they found only deepened the mystery. Among the ancient markings were modern graffiti from the early 20th century, names, dates, crosses, etched beside spirals that predated history by millennia. It was as if generations had been drawn to the same surface, compelled to leave their mark without understanding why. Some researchers suggest that the cup and ring carvings could have been part of a prehistoric code representing not language but meaning, messages embedded in geometry. Others go further, proposing that the designs might encode knowledge passed down from an earlier, forgotten civilization. A few even speculate that the Cochno Stone could depict a view of the Earth from above, an ancient aerial map carved long before flight or satellites. These ideas drift into the realm of conjecture, yet they persist because the stone itself refuses to give up its secret. Even under modern analysis, no definitive explanation has emerged. The patterns don't match any known constellations, nor do they correspond neatly to the surrounding landscape. What they do convey, unmistakably, is intent, a human mind reaching outward, trying to describe something larger than itself. Today, the Cochno Stone lies once again beneath a protective covering of earth, preserved for future generations. But its legacy endures, in digital scans, in photographs, and in the imagination of anyone who gazes upon its designs. Who carved these symbols into solid rock nearly 5,000 years ago? What vision compelled them to create such an intricate and enduring message? Were they mapping the heavens, recording a myth, or reaching toward something they could barely comprehend? The answers remain sealed beneath layers of time, waiting for a moment when understanding finally catches up with mystery. Until then, the spirals of the Cochno Stone continue to whisper across the ages, reminders of a lost language carved in stone and of a question humanity has never stopped asking. What were our ancestors trying to tell us? As the faint echoes of the Cochno Stone fade into memory, our path leads east, beyond the seas and high into the Himalayan foothills, where another enigma rests quietly under the watch of snow-capped peaks and whispering pines. Near the sacred birthplace of the Buddha, in Lumbini, Nepal, a strange circular relic has stirred both awe and confusion among those who've encountered it. It is known to some as the Sky Disc of Nepal, an artifact so peculiar, so unlike anything else in the region, that its origins remain shrouded in uncertainty. It lies in a region steeped in spiritual energy and history. Here, the air is thin, the light sharp and silvery, and the silence deep enough to carry the hum of unseen forces. Local villagers tell stories of the disc long before it drew scholarly attention, stories of a heavenly mirror that fell from the sky, or of an ancient map carved by beings who watched the earth from above. When archaeologists first documented the object in the mid-20th century, they found it half buried near a ruined stupa, its circular face adorned with a maze of symbols and geometric lines. The material was curious, a bronze-like alloy, weathered but remarkably intact, showing no sign of corrosion that one would expect from centuries, or perhaps millennia, of exposure. The design seemed to defy easy categorization. Concentric circles radiated from a central point, intersected by fine engravings that suggested the orbits of celestial bodies. At first glance, it resembled an astronomical chart, but the precision was extraordinary, far beyond what early metalworkers in this part of the world were believed capable of. Initial studies placed the sky disk somewhere between 1500 and 1000 BC during Nepal's late Bronze Age. Yet even this remains debated, as radiometric dating proved inconclusive. Some believe it was an imported relic from Mesopotamia or the Indus Valley, carried by ancient traders who passed through the Himalayan trade routes that linked South Asia to Central Asia and beyond. Others see it as a purely local creation, evidence of a lost Nepalese metallurgical tradition whose knowledge faded long ago. But the real puzzle lies not in its composition, but in its design. Scholars have compared it to the famed Nebra sky disk found in Germany, a Bronze Age artifact thought to represent the cosmos. Both share an almost uncanny resemblance in structure: star-like dots, circular borders, and an apparent alignment with solar or lunar cycles. Could two distant cultures, separated by thousands of miles, have independently conceived the same vision of the heavens? Or could this suggest a deeper connection, a transmission of knowledge across forgotten civilizations? The disk's engravings are even stranger upon closer inspection. Some of the etched symbols bear faint similarities to early Sumerian cuneiform, while others resemble the spiral motifs found in Himalayan petroglyphs. But none have been conclusively matched to any known writing system. Attempts to decipher them have yielded only theories, mathematical notations, astronomical data, or even coded references to mythic cycles of creation and destruction. Local oral traditions add another layer to the enigma. In certain Lumbini monasteries, old texts speak of a sky map gifted to sages by celestial beings, meant to guide humanity's understanding of time. Some monks describe it not as a tool of observation, but as a key, a representation of the cosmic order itself, showing how heaven and earth mirror one another. Skeptical historians caution against such interpretations, suggesting the sky disk may have simply been a ritual object, perhaps used in ceremonies honoring the sun or seasonal changes. They argue that the concentric circles could symbolize cycles of rebirth central to early Buddhist and pre-Buddhist belief systems. Yet, even in this practical light, the disc resists full explanation. The precision of its etching, the choice of alloy, and the cosmic imagery seem to hint at something more deliberate, something meant to endure. More speculative thinkers take the mystery further. They note that the disc's layout, when digitally mapped, aligns closely with certain astronomical constellations visible from the Himalayas around 1400 BC. Others claim the artifact contains references to solstices and equinoxes too exact to be accidental. A few even whisper of ancient visitors, entities who might have come from beyond the earth and left behind this celestial record. It's easy to dismiss such notions as fantasy. Yet, standing before the sky disk, one can understand why so many have been captivated by its silent power. Its polished face seems almost to absorb light, as if reflecting not the sky above, but something deeper, something unseen. Was this object a relic of ancient science, a ritual device, or a message encoded for a future civilization to find? Could it be that the people of ancient Nepal understood the cosmos in ways we have yet to rediscover? Today, the sky disk remains in quiet custody, its markings scanned, its metal analyzed, yet its purpose unresolved. In the high stillness of Lumbini, beneath the same stars it may once have charted, the artifact endures as both question and answer. And perhaps, like the heavens it depicts, it reminds us that not every mystery of the past is meant to be solved. Some are meant to make us look up. From the misted valleys of the Himalayas, our journey turns west, down into the cradle of civilization, where the first cities rose along the fertile banks of the Tigris and Euphrates. It is here, in what is now southern Iraq, that archaeologists unearthed a set of figures so strange, so unlike anything else from the ancient world, that they continue to defy simple explanation. They are known as the Ubaid lizard figurines, small clay statues depicting beings with elongated heads, slanted eyes, and bodies that resemble both human and reptile. Discovered in the ruins of ancient Tel al-Ubaid near the legendary city of Ur, these figures date back over 7,000 years to around 5000 BC, long before the rise of Sumer, Egypt, or any known civilization capable of recording their own myths in writing. At first glance, the figurines are subtle, even delicate. Crafted from unbaked clay, their surface worn smooth by time. Yet their expressions are unmistakably alien. Their skulls taper to sharp points. Their eyes are large and almond-shaped, set deep in narrow faces with almost no discernible nose. Their bodies are thin and androgynous, and their poses vary. Some stand upright with arms crossed, others cradle infants with the same reptilian features. The discovery of these figurines in the early 20th century sparked immediate fascination. Who were these beings that ancient artisans sought to immortalize? Were they gods, mythic ancestors, or something else entirely? Archaeologists initially interpreted them as religious icons, representing deities or spirits worshipped by the Ubaid people, one of the earliest known cultures of Mesopotamia. The Ubaid are credited with developing advanced irrigation systems, establishing permanent settlements, and laying the groundwork for Sumerian civilization. Yet their art rarely depicted humans in such strikingly non-human form. The lizard-like appearance of these figurines stands apart from all other artifacts of the period. Some scholars suggest that the reptilian features may be symbolic rather than literal, perhaps representing fertility, transformation, or divine power. In many ancient cultures, serpents and reptiles were associated with the cycle of life and death, renewal, and the underworld. The Ubaid figurines, then, might have served as ritual objects used in ceremonies related to these themes. But the mystery deepens when one considers the details. The figurines' clothing, or perhaps scales, are finely incised, suggesting not just imagination, but deliberate observation. Their posture, especially the mother and child figures, seems deeply purposeful. Why depict deities as reptilian rather than human? And why do so many of the figurines share the same distinctive skull shape and gaze, as though modeled after real beings once seen? This is where mainstream archaeology begins to diverge from more speculative thought. Some fringe researchers have proposed that the Ubaid lizard figurines depict extraterrestrial visitors, beings who, according to these theories, may have influenced early human development. The resemblance between the figure's features and popular depictions of reptilian humanoids in modern folklore has only fueled such claims. Could the Ubaid people have encountered something, or someone, not of this earth? Others point to the possibility of ancient genetic memory or mythic archetypes, ideas encoded in human imagination since prehistory. Across distant cultures, from the serpent gods of Mesoamerica to the Naga of India, reptilian beings appear repeatedly in myth. Is this simply coincidence, or does it reflect a shared human experience, now lost to time? More grounded theories, meanwhile, focus on cultural evolution. Perhaps the figurines symbolized a pantheon of early deities, precursors to the gods later worshipped by the Sumerians. Some even link them to Enki, the water god, whose association with serpents and amphibious traits might have inspired the figurine's design. In this interpretation, the lizard-like appearance represents divine hybridity, the merging of human and cosmic forces. Yet, even with decades of study, the mystery remains unresolved. No accompanying inscriptions have been found to name or explain the figures. They appear abruptly in the archaeological record and disappear just as suddenly, leaving behind no clear lineage or successor in later Mesopotamian art. Standing before these figurines today, one can sense the quiet enigma they carry. Their blank eyes seem to stare through time itself, as if guarding a secret from humanity's earliest dawn. Were they representations of gods, ancient myths brought to life in clay, or echoes of something the Ubaid people actually witnessed in their skies or dreams? The desert winds still whisper through the ruins of Tel al-Ubaid, carrying with them the faint echoes of a civilization that once flourished here. In their temples, these strange figures might have stood watch as offerings burned and prayers rose toward the stars. And so, the question endures: who or what did the Ubaid people see when they shaped these reptilian forms with their hands? Were they sculpting from imagination or memory? In the silence of the Mesopotamian plain, the Ubaid lizard figurines remain, mute witnesses to a story that has yet to be told, waiting patiently beneath the shifting sands for the world to understand what they were meant to reveal. From the windswept highlands of Mesopotamia, our journey crosses oceans and centuries into the heart of ancient Mesoamerica. Here, in the central valleys of what is now Mexico, lies the archaeological site of Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca. Among the remnants of pre-Columbian temples and burials, surrounded by volcanic hills and the scent of sun-baked earth, archaeologists in 1933 uncovered something that simply should not have been there. It was a small, sculpted head, terracotta, weathered, and unmistakably foreign. The artifact's facial features were not those of the indigenous peoples of the region. The nose was sharp and narrow, the beard finely etched, the expression serene and classical. To the astonishment of those who examined it, this was no Aztec or Toltec relic. It looked Roman. The discovery was made by Austrian archaeologist José García Payón, who was excavating a burial site dated between 1476 and 1510 AD, just decades before the arrival of the Spanish. Within the tomb, alongside pottery, beads, and other local artifacts, lay this mysterious head, its Mediterranean craftsmanship utterly out of place. The possibility seemed almost unthinkable. A Roman artifact buried in pre-Columbian Mexico. When the head was later analyzed in the 1960s, Scholars confirmed that its style resembled Roman sculpture from the 2nd or 3rd century BC. Chemical tests on the clay suggested a composition consistent with ancient Mediterranean ceramics. Yet the context in which it was found appeared genuine. There was no sign of modern interference or later intrusion into the tomb. If authentic, this find would rewrite the history of transoceanic contact. How could a Roman object, crafted more than 1,000 years before the voyage of Columbus, end up buried in the heart of the Americas? Mainstream archaeologists have offered a range of explanations, each plausible in its own way, but none entirely satisfying. Some suggest that the head may have been brought to Mexico much later, perhaps by Spanish explorers or missionaries who unknowingly dropped it at the site, where it became mixed into the ancient layers. Others propose it might have been introduced through trade networks after the European conquest, misplaced, misdated, and later rediscovered in confusion. But the physical evidence challenges these ideas. The head was found sealed within a burial chamber, beneath layers of undisturbed soil, alongside artifacts typical of the region's pre-Hispanic culture. Could this truly have been a modern intrusion, or was it something far older? The more daring hypotheses push further. Some researchers have speculated that ancient Roman sailors, or traders from the Mediterranean, might have reached the Americas long before Columbus, perhaps blown off course by storms or carried by ocean currents across the Atlantic. The Canary Current and the North Equatorial Drift could, in theory, have transported a small vessel from the coast of North Africa or the Iberian Peninsula westward toward the Caribbean. If so, could this tiny terracotta head be a fragment of that forgotten encounter? Evidence of a fleeting, accidental meeting between two worlds that history never recorded? Skeptics remain unconvinced, pointing out that extraordinary claims demand extraordinary evidence. No other Roman objects have been conclusively found in the Americas, and the known Roman trade routes did not extend beyond the eastern Atlantic. The head's presence, they argue, may simply be a product of coincidence or contamination. Yet even so, the artifact's existence continues to raise uncomfortable questions. What makes the mystery more intriguing is how the head seems to bridge two vastly different civilizations, cultures separated not only by distance but by time, worldview, and technology. Its existence feels almost allegorical, as if history itself left behind a symbol of contact between the old world and the new long before the age of exploration. Some fringe interpretations go further still, suggesting that the head might be evidence of a forgotten ancient global network, connecting civilizations far earlier than we believe possible. Others have linked it to tales of lost continents or ancient migrations, where remnants of one world drifted into another, preserved only as whispers in clay. To this day, the Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca head sits quietly in storage, largely ignored by mainstream academia. Tests have been debated, dismissed, and reinterpreted, but no definitive conclusion has ever been reached. Its provenance remains uncertain, its story incomplete. What seems clear is that someone, somewhere, crafted this small head over 2,000 years ago, and somehow it found its way into a grave on the other side of the world. Whether by accident, trade, or something more extraordinary, the artifact now stands as a riddle carved in clay, a silent challenge to the boundaries of history. If one Roman object could cross an ocean long before the great navigators of Europe, what else might lie buried beneath the surface, waiting to remind us that the world of the ancients may have been far more connected and far more mysterious than we dare to imagine? From the windswept ruins of Tecaxic-Calixtlahuaca, our journey now descends into the lush green valleys of South America, into the heart of ancient Colombia, where the dense jungles of the Andes cradle rivers of gold and legend. Here, between the Magdalena and Cauca rivers, the Quimbaya civilization flourished over 1,000 years ago. They were expert metallurgists, artisans of astonishing precision, shaping gold into forms so intricate and lifelike that modern scientists still struggle to replicate their methods. Among their treasures, buried in tombs, hidden in temples, and later unearthed by chance, are the small glittering objects known today as the Quimbaya golden flyers. Only a few centimeters in size, these delicate figures are crafted from tumbaga, an alloy of gold and copper polished to a mirror-like sheen. At first glance, they resemble birds, insects, or fish, creatures of the natural world stylized in gold. But look closer, and something unsettling begins to emerge. Their forms are strangely aerodynamic. Some have triangular wings swept sharply backward, vertical stabilizers and tail fins, features more akin to modern aircraft than to any living species. Their symmetry, their angles, and even the small protrusions beneath them evoke the structure of jet planes or flying machines. It is a detail so peculiar that it has fascinated and perplexed archaeologists, engineers, and skeptics alike for decades. The Quimbaya culture, which reached its height around 500 AD, left no written records, only their art and their gold. So what inspired these figures? Were they mere artistic interpretations of local wildlife, or do they represent something else, something seen, remembered, or imagined in ages long forgotten? Mainstream scholars lean toward a natural explanation. They argue that these figurines likely depict stylized representations of flying fish, bats, or birds common to the region. Ancient artisans, after all, often abstracted the forms of animals into symbolic or spiritual icons. The sweeping lines and sharp angles in this view are expressions of artistic imagination, not evidence of ancient technology. Yet the mystery persists because the design choices go far beyond natural anatomy. Some of the so-called flyers lack feathers, eyes, or legs altogether. Instead, they feature smooth, aerodynamic bodies, tail rudders, and nose cones, details that seem oddly functional. In the late 20th century, two German model builders, Peter Belting and Konrad Lubbers, decided to test the idea. Using the exact proportions of the Quimbaya artifacts, they built scale models and fitted them with modern engines and control surfaces. To the astonishment of many, the models were able to fly, stably, efficiently, and in some cases, almost perfectly. Could it be coincidence? Could a culture from over a millennium ago have intuitively grasped the same aerodynamic principles that would later define modern aviation? Or were these small golden figures inspired by something more literal, perhaps something witnessed in the skies of ancient South America? Some speculative theories suggest that these artifacts might preserve memories of ancient visitors, objects or beings descending from the heavens, their forms later immortalized in gold. Others propose that the flyers are evidence of an early, forgotten understanding of flight, technological knowledge lost to time. Of course, such ideas remain far beyond the bounds of accepted archaeology. No tools, no written records, and no supporting artifacts suggest that the Quimbaya people, or any known ancient culture, possessed flight technology. The official explanation remains rooted in art, myth, and symbolism. And yet, the shapes themselves continue to defy simple categorization. Each figurine, though no longer than a few inches, seems to hint at something larger. A design language that feels uncannily familiar to the modern eye. Even the alloy used, tumbaga, was chosen with remarkable sophistication. Its combination of gold's malleability and copper's strength allowed for fine, durable casting, evidence of a deep technical understanding of metallurgy. The Quimbaya artisans clearly possessed advanced knowledge. But of what exactly? If these objects truly represent birds or fish, why render them in forms so aerodynamic, so mechanical in spirit? If they symbolize deities, what gods did they portray? Creatures of the sky, or beings who came from it? The golden flyers remain silent, their gleam unchanged by the centuries. Some are displayed in Bogotá's Museo del Oro, where visitors still stop, gaze, and quietly marvel. They stand behind glass, isolated yet radiant, tiny messengers from a vanished world. Perhaps they are simply works of inspired imagination, or perhaps they are fragments of a deeper story, one we are not yet ready or equipped to fully understand. What if, beneath the jungles and rivers of Colombia, there are still clues buried in the earth, waiting to reveal whether these flyers were born of myth, art, or memory of something truly extraordinary that once touched the skies of the ancient world? From the jungles of ancient Colombia, where the Quimbaya crafted their mysterious golden flyers, our journey now moves east, across oceans, deserts, and centuries, into the beating heart of the Indian subcontinent. In the shadow of Delhi's Qutb Minar, surrounded by crumbling sandstone arches and whispering banyan trees, stands a relic that has defied time, weather, and scientific expectation. It is known simply as the Iron Pillar of Delhi. At first glance, it appears almost ordinary, a tall, dark column rising quietly into the hazy sky. Yet upon closer inspection, this pillar becomes one of the strangest and most enduring enigmas of the ancient world. Made of nearly pure wrought iron, standing over 7 meters tall and weighing more than 6 tons, it has survived for more than 1,600 years without rusting. That is the first and most unsettling mystery. Iron, by its very nature, corrodes. Exposed to the humid air, the rains of the monsoon, and the scorching Indian sun, it should have long ago crumbled into reddish dust. But this pillar, older than most of the city surrounding it, remains unyielding, smooth and dark, its inscriptions still legible, its surface largely untouched by decay. Historians trace its creation to around the 4th century AD, during the reign of King Chandragupta II of the Gupta Empire. The pillar's Sanskrit inscription praises the king's valor and victory, and it may once have supported a statue of the Hindu god Vishnu. Yet the technology required to forge such a massive piece of pure iron in that era is itself astonishing. In modern terms, the process of refining, heating, and casting so much iron without modern furnaces would have required temperatures exceeding 1,500 degrees Celsius. No known ancient Indian smelting site has produced iron of comparable purity or scale. And so, the pillar raises a quiet but persistent question: how did they do it? Metallurgists have studied the pillar for decades, seeking to decode its resilience. Some point to a thin, invisible layer of crystalline iron hydrogen phosphate, formed naturally on the surface, that prevents further oxidation. Others suggest that the unique composition of ancient Indian iron, high in phosphorus and low in sulfur, helped create this protective film. Yet even these explanations only deepen the wonder. The phenomenon, known as passivation, is so rare that it has become a textbook example of ancient metallurgical brilliance. The craftsmen who made it seemed to possess knowledge centuries ahead of their time, knowledge that, curiously, was not preserved in later Indian metallurgy. Was it the result of an extraordinary accident, or evidence of an advanced scientific understanding that has since vanished from history? The more one studies the pillar, the stranger it becomes. Its surface bears faint hammer marks, evidence that it was forged not as a single cast, but through a process of welding multiple pieces together by hand. Each layer was heated, beaten, and fused until it formed a seamless whole, a technique requiring exceptional precision and control. Some researchers have noted parallels between this ancient method and lost metallurgical traditions from other regions, suggesting the possible transfer of ideas through early trade routes that stretched from Persia to the Indian plains. Others wonder whether the pillar's perfection is not entirely human in origin. More speculative theories, often dismissed but never fully extinguished, speak of a forgotten age of advanced civilizations, or even of extraterrestrial influence. To those who walk the quiet grounds of Qutb complex at dusk, when the pillar gleams faintly against the red sandstone, it is easy to see why such ideas persist. The pillar feels out of time, untouched by the centuries, as though it were placed there not by kings, but by something or someone else. Even in the modern age, when material science and engineering can produce wonders of their own, the iron pillar remains an outlier. Replicating its specific composition and corrosion resistance has proven unexpectedly difficult. In 2002, a team of scientists attempting to mimic its properties admitted that while they could explain aspects of its chemistry, they could not reproduce the same effect with precision. And so, the column stands, serene, immovable, enduring through the rise and fall of empires. It has witnessed the passage of conquerors, from the Delhi Sultanate to the Mughals to the British, and still it refuses to yield. Perhaps its secret lies not in chemistry alone, but in something more intangible, a synthesis of art, ritual, and technology that we can observe but not entirely comprehend. What knowledge did the ancient metallurgists of India truly possess? Was it divine inspiration, accident, or the last trace of an older and forgotten science? The iron pillar does not answer. It merely stands, patient and eternal, a silent reminder that even the most enduring monuments of human ingenuity still conceal mysteries beyond our reach. From the humid plains of northern India and the mystery of the iron pillar, our path now crosses oceans, into the quiet heart of New England, where another enigma lies not above the earth, but deep within it. The story begins in Dorchester, Massachusetts, in the summer of 1851. Workers were engaged in a routine blast at the Meeting House Hill Quarry, breaking apart ancient rock to make way for construction. When the dust settled, something wholly unexpected emerged from the split granite, a small metallic vessel gleaming faintly in the sunlight. The object was unlike anything the workers, or the scientists of the time, had ever seen. It was a bell-shaped pot, about 4.5 inches tall, crafted with extraordinary precision. Made of a zinc-silver alloy, the vessel's sides were inlaid with delicate floral patterns, traced in pure silver. The design was both ornamental and symmetrical, its artistry unmistakably deliberate. But what truly astonished everyone was where it had been found. The pot had been encased within solid rock, blasted from a geological layer estimated, at least by 19th century accounts, to be more than 100 million years old. If the report was accurate, it presented an impossible contradiction: a human-made artifact sealed within rock from the age of the dinosaurs. Newspapers quickly seized on the discovery. The Boston Transcript published the story, while Scientific American discussed the artifact under the headline, "A Relic of a Bygone Age." For a brief moment, the Dorchester Pot captured the public imagination. Was it evidence of a forgotten civilization that predated recorded history? A remnant of some unknown culture, buried long before humans were believed to have existed? Then, just as suddenly, the object vanished from public view. Over time, skeptics argued that the story had been exaggerated, or that the pot had merely been found among the debris, not within solid rock. They proposed more mundane explanations. Perhaps it was a piece of Victorian metalwork, an ornate candlestick or pipe holder that had simply become embedded in loose gravel mistaken for bedrock. Others suggested the explosion might have caused a modern object to fall into the fractured stone, giving the illusion of great antiquity. Yet none of these theories could fully erase the strangeness of the find. The object's composition and design were indeed unusual for the period, and no definitive provenance was ever established. Some early reports described the pot as being of highly artistic workmanship, far superior to that of our present age. Others noted its resemblance to ancient Indian or Middle Eastern metalwork, cultures separated by vast time and space from colonial Massachusetts. Where then did it come from? The mystery deepens when one considers the broader pattern of similar discoveries, known collectively as out-of-place artifacts or OOP arts. From the iron hammer found in Texas embedded in stone to the aluminum wedge of Ayyub discovered in Romania, these finds all share a haunting characteristic. They seem to appear where they cannot possibly belong. Could the Dorchester Pot have been one such anomaly, a window into a lost chapter of human or pre-human history? Some speculative researchers have gone further, suggesting that the pot might represent evidence of an ancient, technologically capable civilization, one that existed long before the rise of Egypt, Sumer, or even humanity as we know it. Others take an even bolder step, proposing it could be a remnant of a non-terrestrial origin, an artifact not merely out of time, but out of this world. Science, of course, demands evidence, and the evidence here is frustratingly incomplete. The Dorchester Pot itself has long been lost, its whereabouts unknown. Without the original artifact, modern analysis, chemical testing, radiometric dating, microscopic study remains impossible. What we are left with are old reports, sketches, and descriptions that hover uneasily between archaeology and folklore. And yet, something about the story refuses to fade. Even today, the image persists, a metallic vessel glimmering in a split of ancient rock, defying every neat timeline we've built to explain our past. Was it a misinterpreted relic of the industrial age, a misplaced trinket of human artifice? Or was it something far more profound, a whisper from a time when history itself was not yet written? The quarry at Meeting House Hill is silent now. The rock has long been quarried away, the workers gone, the mystery unsolved. But beneath the surface of our world, in the strata of stone that holds the memory of eons, there may still lie other secrets waiting to be uncovered, artifacts that challenge not only what we know, but when we began to know it. And so the Dorchester Pot remains, half legend, half clue, its origin lost in the dust of both geology and time. What other impossibilities might still be buried, waiting patiently beneath our feet? From the quiet streets of Massachusetts, where the Dorchester Pot first stirred imaginations, we now travel westward into the stark, arid expanse of California's Coso Mountains, where a discovery would confound geologists and historians alike. It is here, amidst scrub and jagged stone, that a small cluster of rock collectors stumbled upon an object that seemed to defy both time and reason, the Coso Artifact. The story begins in 1961, when 3 local prospectors, who had been scouring the hills for geodes and other mineral curiosities, came across a nondescript lump embedded within a chunk of hard clay. At first glance, it appeared to be an ordinary geode, but when they broke it open, they were met with a startling revelation. Inside lay a small metallic object resembling a modern spark plug. Its cylindrical body was capped with what looked like ceramic insulation, its core threaded with metal, as though it belonged to a machine of the 20th century. The implications were immediate and unsettling. The clay in which the artifact had been found was dated, using standard geological assessment, to be at least 500,000 years old. The artifact itself bore all the hallmarks of modern industrial design, yet it was apparently trapped in a layer of sediment far older than humanity itself. News of the find spread quickly, drawing attention from both mainstream scientists and fringe researchers. Skeptics were quick to suggest that the artifact had been a contemporary spark plug that somehow became encased in the clay, a simple case of modern contamination. But enthusiasts noted a problem. The encasement showed mineralization and oxidation consistent with long-term burial, far beyond what could be expected in a mere decade or two. Further examination revealed additional anomalies. The metal composition of the Coso artifact did not match any known alloys commonly used in spark plugs of the mid-20th century. Its ceramic was exceptionally hard, and under microscopic analysis, the internal wiring suggested techniques not standard in contemporary manufacturing. Could this object be evidence of some unknown prehistoric technology far beyond what we traditionally attribute to human civilization? The artifact's mystery deepens when considering the broader context of the region. The Coso Mountains are rich with petroglyphs and ancient Native American sites, some dating back thousands of years, which suggest that humans have inhabited the area for a long time. Yet no known culture possessed the technological capability to produce such an object, nor is there any record of mechanical devices existing anywhere near this period. Speculative theories quickly emerged. Some suggested the artifact might be a piece of ancient advanced technology, perhaps a relic from a civilization lost to time, whose knowledge of metallurgy and engineering rivaled or surpassed our own. Others entertained the possibility of extraterrestrial involvement, imagining the object as a fragment of a machine brought to Earth from the skies. Even mainstream scientists, though often skeptical, admitted that the artifact posed questions they could not fully answer. The debate over the Coso artifact is emblematic of the wider phenomenon known as OOPARTS, out-of-place artifacts. These are objects whose existence seems incompatible with the accepted timelines of human history. Like the Dorchester Pot or the London Hammer of Texas, they challenge not only what we know, but how we define possible in the deep past. Attempts to replicate the artifact, or to identify it as a conventional spark plug, have been inconclusive. Laboratory analyses hint at a composition and craftsmanship that is difficult to reconcile with standard industrial methods of the mid-20th century. Photographs and fragments show an object both familiar and alien, simultaneously modern and ancient, a paradox frozen in clay. The artifact has since been carefully preserved in private collections, studied by enthusiasts and metallurgists, yet its true origin remains elusive. The prospectors who first discovered it reportedly experienced a sense of unease, as if they had unearthed something that was never meant to be found. And in the silence of the Coso Mountains, where wind whispers through jagged ridges and scrub, the artifact seems almost to hum with an unanswered question. Was the Coso artifact a misinterpreted fragment of modern machinery, accidentally buried and mineralized over a short period? Or does it represent the faint traces of a civilization lost to prehistory, one that possessed knowledge now vanished from human memory? Could it even hint at something far stranger, a technology or intelligence beyond our understanding, hidden beneath the layers of time and stone? No matter how meticulously examined, the Coso artifact refuses to yield its secrets. Like the ancient pillars, pots, and cryptic carvings that have preceded it, it stands as a silent witness to the past, a reminder that history, as we understand it, may still be only a fragment of a far more complex and astonishing story. And so, as the California sun sets behind the serrated ridges of the Coso Mountains, we are left with an artifact that challenges our assumptions, a puzzle waiting beneath layers of clay, stone, and time. What other objects like this might lie hidden, quietly awaiting discovery, their mysteries poised to rewrite the story of human history? From the arid sands of Egypt, where centuries of history lie layered beneath the sun-scorched horizon, we turn our attention to one of the most perplexing visual enigmas ever discovered in the ancient world, the so-called helicopter hieroglyphs at the Temple of Seti I in Abydos. Carved deep into the temple's stone walls, these reliefs appear at first glance to depict ordinary religious motifs: a pharaoh's triumph, ceremonial vessels, and the hieroglyphic lexicon of a civilization millennia old. Yet, upon closer inspection, a startling anomaly emerges. In certain panels, the carvings seem to form shapes that, to the modern eye, resemble familiar technologies: a helicopter, a submarine, even a spacecraft. The images are not isolated. They are part of a sequence of overlapping glyphs that create ghostly impressions of these seemingly advanced machines. Scholars have long noted that these are not modern drawings, nor were they created with contemporary tools. The phenomenon is the result of palimpsest-like layering, where inscriptions were carved over earlier texts, partially erasing the original while leaving a faint impression. Yet the effect is eerie, an optical illusion that evokes objects completely unknown in the ancient world. Historical records place the construction of the Abydos temple in the reign of Seti I, around 1290 to 1279 BC, a time when Egyptian artisans were masters of stonework, metallurgy, and iconography. The temple's walls are carved with painstaking precision, each line and curve carefully measured and executed. The overlapping hieroglyphs were not errors. They were part of a deliberate effort to update or correct inscriptions, perhaps to honor a successor pharaoh. But in doing so, the reliefs created shapes that appeared to the modern observer as futuristic devices. Mainstream Egyptologists explain the helicopter forms as a trick of perception, a coincidental merging of two sets of hieroglyphs resulting in pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns in unrelated shapes. According to this view, what looks like a helicopter or a submarine is, in reality, a composite of cartouches, hieroglyphic symbols, and decorative flourishes, accidentally aligning to mimic machinery. Yet the mystery refuses to be entirely rationalized. Some researchers suggest that the overlapping reliefs might reflect a memory of forgotten technology, knowledge passed down in cryptic form, intentionally encoded in stone. Could these layered glyphs be symbolic representations of ideas or devices beyond our understanding of ancient Egyptian culture? Or are they an extraordinary coincidence, a glimpse into the mind's pattern-seeking instincts? The Abydos reliefs invite questions that traverse the boundaries between history and imagination. How could a civilization that existed over 3 millennia ago produce visual motifs that so closely resemble the mechanical inventions of the 20th century? Were these shapes merely artistic accidents? Or were they inspired by something the ancient Egyptians observed? An artifact, a concept, perhaps even a vision that defies the conventional timeline of technology? Further intrigue arises when considering other depictions within the temple. Some of the overlapping glyphs resemble objects that could float, dive, or fly, machines that ancient texts make no mention of, machines that cannot yet be explained through conventional archaeology. Their presence in a sacred space adds another layer of mystery. If the Egyptians did encode such imagery intentionally, was it a religious metaphor, a cosmic allegory, or something altogether different? Scientific analysis and careful photography have attempted to unravel the layers, but even with modern imaging technology, the illusion persists. Shadows, erosion, and the natural aging of stone combine with the human mind's propensity for pattern recognition, making the reliefs perpetually enigmatic. Observers oscillate between admiration for ancient artistry and bewilderment at the forms that emerge. Ultimately, the Abydos helicopter glyphs challenge our perception of what is possible in the distant past. They are simultaneously evidence of meticulous craftsmanship, a canvas of religious devotion, and a visual puzzle that hints at mysteries we may never fully decode. The carvings whisper to us across millennia, inviting speculation and contemplation, urging us to question the limits of human knowledge, imagination, and the way we interpret history. As sunlight filters through the temple's ancient corridors, casting long shadows across stone walls, one is left with a profound sense of wonder. Were these figures mere coincidences, illusions crafted by overlapping inscriptions, or echoes of knowledge lost to time? The answer remains as elusive as the desert winds that have swept across Abydos for thousands of years, leaving only stone and shadow and the haunting shapes of machines no one from that era could have built. What else might lie hidden in the carvings, in plain sight yet beyond comprehension, waiting for us to perceive it, and to question what we think we know about the ingenuity of the ancient world? Beneath the shifting sands of Egypt, where the necropolises of ancient Memphis whisper of a civilization devoted to the afterlife, lies a tomb that has perplexed researchers for decades. The Saqqara tomb, dedicated to the high priest Wadi, a figure entwined with the rituals of the Old Kingdom. Carved into the limestone with the precision of masters whose hands understood stone as fluid as clay, the tomb's walls are adorned with intricate bas-reliefs, each one a narrative frozen in time. Among these depictions, one image has captured the fascination, and sometimes the disbelief, of modern observers. A peculiar motif that resembles a modern light bulb. The relief shows a large, elongated object, bulbous at the top and narrowing to a slender stem, held within the grasp of a figure whose posture suggests reverence or demonstration. From the top of the form emerges a thin, sinewy line, looping and twisting like a filament, connecting it to what appears to be a vessel or coiled structure. To the casual eye, it evokes the unmistakable silhouette of a glowing lamp, a technology thought impossible for a civilization more than 4 millennia removed from the modern era. Historically, the Saqqara tombs were carved during the 6th dynasty, around 2300 BC, a period marked by profound religious and technological development. Egyptians of this era mastered construction, hydraulics, metallurgy, and intricate artistry. Their understanding of light, however, was thought limited to oil lamps, torches, and reflective surfaces. The light bulb relief challenges this assumption, suggesting an understanding of electricity, or at least a conceptual depiction that mirrors our modern imagination. Mainstream Egyptologists have interpreted the imagery as symbolic, representing the lotus flower, entwined serpents, or the Djed pillar, connected with divine energy and eternal life. These interpretations emphasize the religious context. The shapes are metaphorical, depicting spiritual illumination rather than physical light. Yet the details are striking. The coiled element above the bulbous form, the apparent socket at the base, and the suggestion of suspended energy, elements that invite a comparison to electrical schematics more than ritual iconography. Alternative interpretations, proposed by those intrigued by anomalous archaeology, suggest that the relief could represent technological knowledge lost to time, a glimpse into ancient experimentation with energy or lighting methods beyond conventional oil or fire. Could the Egyptians have devised a form of plasma lamp, a chemical light, or even a rudimentary electrical device? The tomb's isolation and ceremonial purpose make verification difficult, yet the precision of the carvings raises questions about intent. Was this merely artistic abstraction, or is there a practical knowledge encoded within these sacred walls, intentionally hidden in symbolic form? What makes the Saqqara light bulb even more enigmatic is its context. Nearby reliefs depict priests holding vessels, twisting coiled lines resembling filaments, and a network of ducts or containers that could, to the imaginative eye, function as a power supply. The juxtaposition of these elements is striking. Science and religion, utility and ritual seem to converge in a single artistic tableau. Could the ancient Egyptians have been experimenting with electrochemical processes, or is this purely metaphorical? A visualization of spiritual energy illuminating the divine path. Scientific analysis of similar tombs and artifacts has yet to uncover any physical evidence of functioning devices. No copper wires, insulating materials, or residual chemicals have been definitively linked to this tomb. Yet the imagery persists, vivid, undeniable, and haunting. The relief forces us to reconsider what constitutes technology in an ancient context. Can symbolic representation hint at practical experimentation? Could knowledge exist in abstraction before physical realization? The relief has also inspired debate over ancient perception of light. In Egyptian cosmology, light was a manifestation of divine order, the victory of Ra over chaos, and an essential aspect of immortality. The bulb could be a symbolic lens, showing the illumination of knowledge itself, a visual metaphor bridging the earthly and divine. Or perhaps it was inspired by observations of natural phenomena, lightning, bioluminescence, or the glow of certain minerals, translated into sacred imagery that resonates with modern forms. As observers stand before the relief, camera lenses and flashlight beams capturing its shadowed contours, the mind cannot help but wonder. Was this a purely symbolic artwork, a priestly metaphor carved to honor the unseen energies of the cosmos? Or could the relief be a coded record of experimentation, a tantalizing trace of knowledge the world has yet to rediscover? The ambiguity remains deliberate and profound. The Saqqara tomb, like the Abydos helicopter glyphs or the Coso Artifact, sits at the intersection of history, imagination, and anomaly. It reminds us that the ancient world was both practical and abstract, that its artists could encode meanings lost to the passage of millennia, and that symbols can transcend their apparent simplicity, whispering hints of secrets never fully revealed. So as the Egyptian sun arcs over the desert sands, illuminating the Saqqara Plateau with a warm, golden glow, we are left with a singular thought. What other devices, ideas, or knowledge might lie hidden in plain sight, etched in stone by hands that understood far more than we have yet learned to see? The relief invites contemplation, speculation, and wonder, leaving us poised on the threshold of a mystery that has survived the ages, still refusing to be fully explained. In the ruins of ancient Nimrud, once a grand Assyrian city perched along the banks of the Tigris, archaeologists unearthed a small, unassuming artifact that has captivated researchers and enthusiasts alike. A piece of quartz, shaped with meticulous precision, now known as the Nimrud lens. At first glance, it appears to be a simple fragment of glass or crystal, worn and weathered by centuries of burial. But a closer examination reveals an object of remarkable craftsmanship, a lens, convex and carefully ground, capable of magnifying objects placed beneath it. Discovered during excavations in the 1940s within the palace of King Ashurnasirpal II, around 750 BC, the lens is remarkably clear, free of bubbles or imperfections common to natural quartz fragments. Its form is simple, yet functional, a testament to the technical skill of ancient Assyrian artisans. The lens measures approximately 4.5 centimeters in diameter, and its shape suggests it may have been used to focus light, magnify small objects, or perhaps even as a component in a more complex device. Mainstream archaeologists generally regard it as an object of craftsmanship, possibly a jewel setting, decorative piece, or optical tool used for magnification in intricate work, such as inspecting gemstones or fine inscriptions. The Assyrians were masters of detailed reliefs and metalwork, so the idea that they could employ lenses to enhance their precision is plausible. Yet, the artifact's clarity and intentional shaping suggest a deeper understanding of light and refraction than commonly attributed to that era. Speculative theories take the story further. Some researchers propose that the Nimrud lens could have been used as part of ancient telescopic or solar concentrating instruments, a notion that challenges conventional timelines of optical science. Could the Assyrians have understood principles of focusing light, of magnification beyond mere inspection? Were they able to craft devices that concentrated sunlight for burning, engraving, or even rudimentary experimentation with energy? No conclusive evidence survives, yet the possibility lingers, tantalizing in its implications. The context of its discovery adds to the intrigue. The lens was found among the remains of a palace filled with ivory carvings, detailed inscriptions, and finely wrought metalwork, objects that demanded extreme precision and artistic control. It is easy to imagine the artisans of Nimrud using a magnifying tool, not for spectacle, but for necessity, ensuring that every detail of a relief, every stroke of a carving, met the high standards of the Assyrian court. Yet, the artifact's potential optical applications extend beyond mere craft. Its shape and clarity raise the question: did the Assyrians glimpse technologies or techniques now lost to time? Modern experiments with replicas of the Nimrud lens have shown that, properly positioned, it can magnify small text or images, bringing details into startling clarity. Light passing through it can be concentrated to a point, hinting at applications that would have been extraordinary in the ancient world. Whether for practical craft, ritual use, or as part of a tool now vanished from history, the lens suggests a sophistication that challenges our assumptions about early civilizations. Some have even speculated on its role in more esoteric functions, symbolic, ceremonial, or even proto-scientific, intended to capture the divine, focus light as a metaphor for knowledge, or facilitate observation of celestial events. Ancient Assyrians were deeply invested in astronomy, divination, and the interpretation of omens. Could this lens have served as a bridge between art, observation, and the sacred? A tool that blurred the line between utility and ritual? As one examines the Nimrud lens today, the mind drifts across millennia, imagining hands carefully shaping the crystal, polishing its surfaces until it gleamed with clarity. Was it merely a tool of artisans, a magnifying aid for intricate work? Or does it represent knowledge of optics far ahead of its time, an echo of experimentation we are only beginning to grasp? The lens rests quietly now, a small object of glass and stone, yet vast in its implications. It invites reflection on what the Assyrians knew, what technologies they may have glimpsed, and how much of their practical and intellectual mastery has been lost beneath the layers of history. Could other artifacts, still buried in Nimrud's ruins or scattered across the ancient world, reveal an understanding of science, optics, or energy that predates our accepted timelines? The Nimrud lens stands as a silent challenge, an optical window into the past that refracts more than light. It refracts curiosity, wonder, and the haunting possibility that the ancient world was far more technologically and intellectually complex than we have yet imagined. What other secrets might be waiting in plain sight, carved, shaped, or polished by hands that once commanded an empire now lost to time but not forgotten? High in the remote mountains of Baiyin and Bayanhar, along the borderlands of what is now modern China, a discovery was made in the 1930s that would puzzle researchers for decades. Hundreds of circular stone discs, meticulously carved and buried within ancient cave complexes. Known today as the Dropa discs, these artifacts measure roughly 30 centimeters in diameter, each marked with concentric grooves etched along their surface, and each inscribed with patterns that defy immediate interpretation. At first glance, they appear almost mechanical in nature, yet they were discovered in layers of sediment dating back thousands of years, far predating any civilization in the region known for such precision. The story of the Dropa discs begins with the anthropologist Chi Pu Te, who, along with a small team of researchers, stumbled upon human remains interred within these same caves. Among the skeletal fragments were signs of unusual cranial modifications, small and delicate bones that suggested a population unknown to mainstream archaeology. Nearby, the discs lay undisturbed, their smooth edges and intricate engravings hinting at an intelligence capable of sophisticated craftsmanship. But for what purpose? Mainstream explanations have suggested that the Dropa discs could have been ritual objects, ceremonial tools, or even ancient calendars. Yet the grooves etched into their surfaces, spiraling from the center outward, evoke the precise markings of a record-keeping system. or perhaps even a musical score. In the decades following their initial discovery, some researchers claimed that attempts to decode the inscriptions revealed a series of symbols that could represent language or numerical data, but their authenticity remains controversial, and much of the documentation was either lost or dismissed. What sets the Dropa discs apart from other ancient artifacts is not only their unusual design, but also the context in which they were found. These caves sit at an altitude exceeding 3,500 meters, a harsh, wind-battered landscape scarcely hospitable to sustained human settlement. Yet here, isolated and untouched for millennia, lie these discs, perfectly preserved, a silent testament to a culture or people now lost. Could they have been used for practical purposes, like tools or instruments? Or do they hold a symbolic or cosmic significance, perhaps intended to encode knowledge beyond immediate comprehension? Speculative theories abound. Fringe researchers have suggested that the discs were vehicles of ancient knowledge, possibly even designed to interface with unknown technologies. Some have connected the Dropa discs to extraterrestrial visitors, citing their advanced craftsmanship and enigmatic inscriptions as evidence of contact with beings beyond Earth. While these claims remain unverified, they reflect the almost otherworldly aura of the artifacts themselves. One cannot help but wonder, could a civilization so remote, so seemingly isolated, have developed technology or knowledge entirely erased from our historical record? Scientific analysis of the discs has been limited, partly due to their disputed provenance and the fragmentary nature of surviving specimens. Those that have been studied reveal a basalt composition, unusually hard, with precise carvings that would have required both skill and specialized tools. Some researchers argue that the spiral grooves resemble phonograph-like grooves, capable of storing data or sound, while others suggest they might serve as symbolic representations of cycles, perhaps astronomical in nature. Adding to the mystery is the absence of corroborating artifacts in surrounding regions. Unlike other ancient civilizations, which leave behind pottery, tools, or inscriptions that clearly define their culture, the Dropa discs stand almost alone, isolated within a geological and archaeological vacuum. This isolation amplifies their strangeness. Who created them, and why were they deliberately buried, hidden beneath layers of rock and soil? Were they meant to survive the ages as a message, a record, or a warning? The human connection to the discs, the skeletal remains nearby, suggests that the Dropa people, if that is indeed who they were, lived lives deeply entwined with these objects. The cranial features of the skeletons, the arrangement of the discs, and the location of the caves hint at a society that may have revered knowledge, light, or sound in ways we can barely comprehend today. Did they perceive the discs as sacred, or were they utilitarian objects whose purpose was so familiar at the time that its significance was assumed rather than recorded? As one contemplates the Dropa discs today, the mind drifts to the windswept cliffs of the Bayanhar Mountains, imagining ancient hands carving spirals into stone, working patiently, perhaps guided by knowledge now lost to time. What did these grooves mean to their creators? What knowledge, what understanding of the cosmos was encoded within their smooth, dark surfaces? The Dropa discs remain a quiet enigma, perched at the intersection of human ingenuity, lost civilizations, and unanswered questions. They invite us to consider not only what has been preserved, but also what has been irretrievably lost. Could these discs be a remnant of a forgotten chapter of human history? Or perhaps a clue that the story of life on this planet and beyond is far more complex than we have dared to imagine? The mountains remain silent, and the discs wait, their spirals still etched with secrets we may only begin to glimpse. High on the windswept hills of southern Crete, amidst the ruins of the ancient city of Phaistos, lies an artifact that has both fascinated and perplexed scholars for nearly a century. the Phaistos Disc. Unlike the grand palaces and frescoed walls that surround it, the disc is small, unassuming, made of clay, about 15 centimeters in diameter, yet it carries an aura of profound mystery. Its surface is covered with a spiral of carefully stamped symbols, hundreds of pictographs that twist inward toward the center like a coded labyrinth. Each mark is precise, repetitive yet distinct, as if carved by a tool whose knowledge and purpose are now lost to time. The disc was discovered in 1908 by archaeologist Luigi Pernier, buried within the Minoan palace of Phaistos, a civilization that thrived around 1700 to 1600 BC. At first, it seemed to be an ordinary artifact, a clay tablet among many, unremarkable compared to the frescoes and pottery nearby. Yet its inscriptions immediately defied classification. The symbols did not resemble any known Minoan writing system, including linear A or linear B. Each pictograph, human figures, tools, plants, animals, appears carefully chosen, arranged with a deliberate rhythm along the spiral. Could it be a record, a prayer, or a story? Or is it something more enigmatic, a message intended for eyes far beyond its time? Mainstream archaeology treats the disc with caution. Many suggest it may have been a ritual object, a ceremonial token, or a mnemonic device for reciting chants or genealogies. Its compact size hints that it may have been portable, perhaps carried in processions or used in sacred rites. Yet, despite decades of study, the meaning of its symbols remains unresolved. Unlike other ancient scripts that were eventually deciphered through comparative study, the Phaistos Disc stands alone, isolated in both form and content, resisting attempts at translation. The uniqueness of the disc has inspired speculation that stretches beyond the bounds of conventional scholarship. Some propose it may have been an early form of movable type, a prelude to written printing, as each symbol appears stamped rather than inscribed by hand. Others ponder whether the disc could encode astronomical knowledge or calendrical cycles, a tool for tracking time or celestial events. Could the spiral itself symbolize the cosmos, the eternal cycle of life and death, or even a form of ancient encryption meant to preserve secrets from outsiders? Adding to the intrigue is the disc's singularity. Unlike the thousands of clay tablets and inscriptions unearthed across Crete, no other artifact mirrors the Phaistos disc in style or purpose. This isolation raises questions about the society that created it. Did it represent an isolated intellectual pursuit, the work of a master artisan, or a unique priestly caste? Was it a communication intended only for the initiated, a sacred cipher whose understanding was deliberately restricted? Speculative theories push even further. Some researchers have suggested connections between the disc and distant civilizations, hinting at lost lines of contact across the Mediterranean or even wider trade networks in the Bronze Age. Others have imagined the disc as a vessel of ancient knowledge, a repository of wisdom encoded in a symbolic language that modern humans have yet to comprehend. The possibility that it represents an entirely independent writing system, created in isolation and lost to history, adds a layer of haunting wonder. What other forms of knowledge might have existed and vanished without a trace? Scientific scrutiny, including microscopic analysis, confirms that the symbols were impressed into the clay with individual stamps, each carefully aligned along the spiral. This level of craftsmanship indicates intentionality and precision, far beyond casual artistic expression. The disc's spiral arrangement itself is captivating, guiding the viewer's eye inward, suggesting a journey, a narrative, or a sequence of instructions. Could the movement of the spiral reflect a ritual path, a cognitive exercise, or even a meditative practice? The Phaistos Disc challenges assumptions about Minoan culture and, more broadly, about human ingenuity in the ancient world. Its purpose, origin, and meaning remain elusive, Yet the artifact is undeniably human, crafted with skill, care, and purpose. It invites reflection on the capabilities of civilizations that existed millennia before our own, civilizations whose intellectual achievements may have been erased by time, natural disasters, or conquest. As we stand before the image of the disc, turning its spiral symbols over in the mind's eye, one cannot help but feel the pull of mystery. Who pressed these symbols into clay so many centuries ago, and why? What knowledge, ritual, or message did they intend to preserve? And above all, what secrets remain hidden, waiting for the future to uncover them? The Phaistos Disc remains a silent enigma, a testament to human creativity and curiosity, whispering from the distant past that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only contemplated.